You should have. If I get sick now, coming after you.
Okay, Jean.
Stay away. We're putting up this blockade right here.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. This is February the 3rd. I welcome you all to the Board of Supervisors meeting this morning, and we're going to begin this morning with the invocation by our clerk of the board, Miss Jenny.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather today. We thank you for our great country and ask that the board be given the wisdom and courage to make good decisions regarding the items before them today. We ask that you bless and watch over our family, friends, and coworkers, and allow us to grow closer and nurture the bonds of our communities. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. So the Board of Supervisors may, by motion, recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorney on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-43103. So this morning, I'll start out asking for a motion and action to call for an executive session to be held on February the 18th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, I'll entertain a motion and action to approve the waiving of the reading of the full items presented for discussion, adoption, and approval at this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, going on to the official business to come before the board this morning. We'll start out with the discussion of pending or contemplated litigation claims or demands. Mr. Esplin, do we have anything?
Nothing to report to the board, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee and/or legislative reports, beginning with Supervisor Watson, please.
Have nothing this morning, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On January 24th, Chairman Bishop, Sheriff Schuster, Don Bischoff, and Dean McKee from the jail, County Manager Hendricks, and I traveled to Yavapai County to receive a presentation on a program called Reach Out. The Reach Out initiative puts together a team of stakeholders that cross over multiple systems, including mental health, substance use, law enforcement, pretrial services, courts, jails, community corrections, housing, health, social services, family members, and others. The goal of Reach Out is to improve cross-system collaborations to reduce involvement in the justice system by people with mental and substance abuse disorders. The goal is to lessen people in the jail, decrease recidivism, and it has been successful in doing both. In Yavapai County, the sequential intercept model is an evidence-based tool used to achieve this goal. The 100% grant-based program has achieved much success in Yavapai County, so much that the state has taken notice, and there is a bill to be voted on this year that we and CSA support, which makes funds available to counties that implement this Reach Out program. It is a bipartisan bill. The Sheriff's Office and I will start presenting this to the Health and Wellness Stakeholder Workshop here at the county, which starts tomorrow. I will report back on this at our next meeting. I also attended 2 CSA Legislative Policy Committee meetings via telephone. These meetings provide us updates on legislation proposed which will affect the county in some way. We vote as a committee as to whether we want to support or oppose new legislation as it goes through the legislative process. Some of these are cost shift legislation that we must follow carefully, and some are policy issues that affect the day-to-day operations of the county, local businesses, and the lives of our residents. As the session continues, I will be bringing back items that I believe are of interest to the county. I'm happy to report that this week, Yavapai, Apache, and La Paz counties will be voting on becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary county using the Mojave County resolution, which we passed on November 4th. We have much to celebrate on that. And as a reminder, the West Care Run 16-bed all-women drug treatment house will have its ribbon cutting on Friday, February 7th at 12 noon to 1 p.m. The address is 1160 Agate Drive in Bullhead City. If you want further information, please call 928-763-1945. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus, and I'll just add to your comments on Yavapai County's Reach Out program. They have done tremendous work in reducing recidivism and mental health issues in their jail. They've been showing exceptional compassion and wisdom, and my belief is improving public safety, saving taxpayers' dollars, and supporting recovery for people living with a mental illness or addiction that come involved in our criminal justice system is what we hope to duplicate in our detention center. So thank you for bringing that up and for going to Yavapai County. And if the sheriff's here, thank you and Chief Deputy for attending as well. And County Manager Hendricks was there. So we'll see where this takes Mojave County. So Supervisor Gold, do you have any reports?
None today, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Johnson.
Nothing today, Madam Chair.
Okay. I guess I'll bring up the fact that I attended the Arizona House of Representatives Transportation Commission meeting at the Capitol last week. I joined other county and city leaders from around the northern and western regions of the state to testify about the poor condition of our roads, stressing the importance of highway user funds, what we call HERF funds. Through the state's current long-range plan, ADOT estimates an underinvestment of at least $1.2 billion a year for the foreseeable future, which will only address about 43% of the state system needs on roads. And then county and city roads, also heavily dependent on gas tax revenues, are facing similar shortfalls. And what I learned was that every county in the state of Arizona and every city is experiencing the same problems. And all of our stories were so similar, it was unbelievable. Our legislators know the importance of fixing our roads, and this testimony just reinforced what they already knew. We're asking for a strategic and a sustainable remedy to this problem in the state of Arizona and for all of our counties and cities. The committee chairman, Noel Campbell, provided greater visibility to the needs in advance of introducing bills to the legislation this legislative year that will increase revenues. So we'll see where that goes. And then I just wanted to publicly state thank you to the Friends of the Joshua Tree Forest in Meadview. They sent a really nice letter to myself and the Public Works Director, giving kudos to Public Works and the BLM for cooperating and helping them transplant 21 Joshua trees from a new improvement realignment project in their area, and then replanting those trees in an area of Diamond Bar Road that had been moved. So that worked really well, and I really appreciated them sending us that letter of kudos. So that's all I have, and we'll go on now to the county manager's report. Do you have anything this morning?
I have no report today, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the January 6, 2019 Board of Supervisors minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. We'll go on now to the call to the public. And the first person I'll be calling up to speak, if you'll just give your name, you have 3 minutes to speak. Joy Bancroft. And she's going to be speaking about code enforcement. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. Again, my name is Joy Bancroft. I live at 4682 Linden Drive in Topak, Golden Shores. The last 3 months, we have been before you with our code enforcement concerns in Golden Shores. And now I'm feeling really good about the results. And thanks to Supervisor Gold and Barbara for listening to us and acting on our behalf. I would also like to thank Tim Walsh and Christine Ballard and the code enforcement staff They've been concentrating on our properties in Golden Shores, and it's just awesome. Also, thanks to Gilbert from Building Division. He is diligent right now on a few of our really hazardous and dangerous buildings. There's a couple of them in Golden Shores. Thank you to Sheriff Schuster and the deputies and the staff for concentrating and getting our bad element cleaned up. It's making a huge difference in our community. We're also looking into volunteers in our community similar to cactus cleaners. And we want to help clean up some of the properties and help the people that are disabled and elderly who can't, take care of their properties. But it would be helpful if we had more support from Erase, maybe more erase days, trash days in Golden Shores. That would be really helpful. On a different note, I've heard from the dog lovers in our community and our local dog whisperer, who is Stephanie, and we are in real need of a low-cost spay and neuter clinic, possibly just in Golden Shores. We're experiencing a huge problem with loose dogs, and they're creating abundance of puppies. Officer Blair, I like to thank Officer Blair and the other officer from Animal Control who has spent a lot of time in Golden Shores helping with the loose dogs. But we really have I didn't even realize, a really huge problem with puppies. Thank you, and I appreciate you always listening to me every month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy. Our next speaker is Richard Knowles.
Good morning. I'm Richard Knowles. I live in and own a business in Yucca, Arizona. I've been there over 20 years. I'm here with hopefully the most powerful government agency here in Mojave County to ask for some help. Our local fire department, been there 20 plus years, have watched as petty theft and corruption went on in the fire department over and over. Could never really get anything done about it, but it was never really anything other than petty. Of late, our current administration has went over the top with open meeting law violations. Most recently, they, without notice, without bids, without appraisals, sold our Station 2 to one of the employees at the fire department for $16,371. That brought to my attention what was going on. I looked into it a little bit, and not only that, they've sold 2 ambulances valued at well over $70,000 for $500 a piece, again, without notice, without any kind of bids to the public or any work such as that. I spoke to the county attorney, who said, well, yeah, it sounds bad, but I'm not an investigative person. We have to have something come to us as evidence from the fire or from the sheriff's office or law enforcement. So we had a detective that looked into it from law enforcement with the sheriff's office. When I talked to him, I was told that, I don't believe this to be right, but I was told that as a fire district, they can choose not to follow state laws. They can pretty much do what they want. I don't believe that to be fact. I don't believe this board could do it, so I sure don't think they can. At this point, they were within the law. I do not believe that to be fact. The board of the fire department has fought with me. They don't want me to have anything to do with this. They canceled the last meeting where they were supposed to handle this. Supposedly, the kid who bought, and by the way, the person who bought the building and the 2 ambulances is the same person, the same lieutenant that works for the fire district. In poor judgment, the current board, after the fire chief at the beginning of the year was jailed for theft, hired the new chief, who is a convicted felon from California. He got his fire training in prison. This is a guy who has access to our businesses, our homes. That's just wrong. What I'm asking the board for is, I don't even know what you can do. I don't know what your powers are, but I'm looking for any help we can get from you. Maybe some pressure on the county attorney to look at this again. Maybe if it's fact, this is within the realm of the law, we need to legislate something so this can't happen. and this is only what I know about. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, the approximate $200,000 I know about is only the tip of the iceberg. We have recently had one of our fire trucks repossessed. A place from New York come and took our fire truck away. We went from having so many fire trucks that we couldn't even fit them all in the buildings to, we're down to like 4 now. I've been told that our Cascade unit that they use to fill the breathing apparatus for the firefighters has been sold off to one of the board members now. Don't know for how much, but again, it was sold off without anyone publicizing it or anything going out to the public. Ronnie Robbins is on the board.
Mr. Knoll, if you could wrap it up, I believe your 3 minutes is up.
I'm sorry, I don't do time well. Anyway, as I said, I would very much like for any help that you could give us to be done for us. As I said, I don't know what your powers are, but if you have any, we would very much appreciate it as taxpayers in the Yucca Fire District. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're not allowed to engage in a back and forth discussion, but if you want to speak to the county attorney after the meeting, he can't give you legal advice, but maybe he could give you some guidance. And I know you've already spoke to your supervisor,
Yes.
Ron Gold, so I think you're on the right path.
All right, well, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to give that to staff to look into and meet with Mr. Knoll, so it's formal.
Okay, very good. Our next speaker is Jamie Morgaine. You'd give us your name. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, good morning. For the record, my name is Jem Morgan. I am a Kingman resident and 1st District constituent. We have come before this board multiple times over the racist and xenophobic Facebook rants of Luana Gillette. We have a formal complaint with the county that hasn't been responded to. We filed that in October. I attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings regularly to read into the record that her racist and xenophobic Facebook rants are in violation of the Code of Ethics that she signed and is unqualified. At the January 8th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, 3 of those commission members simultaneously in a pre-planned opposition to what I bring to that commission, stood up and walked out as I approached the podium for the call to the public. Lake Havasu News reported on that, and Buster Johnson's response to that, his public response was, there's nothing that says they have to sit there. So I'm here to present what is in writing that does actually say they have to sit there. This is the oath of office that is stipulated by ARS Section 38-231 of all government bodies in the state. This is the oath. I have copies of all 3 of those commission members. It's actually a notarized oath that they had to sign. So the part specifically that I will call out to is the part of the oath that says, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The key word there is impartially. It is clear that their pre-planned walkout is not an impartial representation of their duties. And in terms of duties, this is a copy of the January 8th meeting agenda. The box highlighted in red at the top is where it stipulates their names as commission members for each of those 3 districts. So we have District 2, District 3, and District 4 commission members involved in this. And then the box down at the bottom is the call to the public. So this is the agenda for the meeting. So this is the explicitly written duties that those commissioners signed their oath that they would faithfully execute in an impartial way. In my opinion, they essentially resigned their positions when they synchronously stood up and walked out for the call
you
to the
got 30
public.
seconds to wrap it up, please.
Excuse me?
You have 30 seconds to wrap it up in.
We as citizens have a right to expect that the oaths of office will be faithfully and impartially carried out. Those 3 commission members resigned their positions when they were unable to impartially carry out their duties. And I will be filing a formal complaint with the county. Again, it will probably be treated with the same lack of respect as our other complaint.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morgan.
Yeah, we expect this from Mojave County, but we no longer
your time is
accept
up.
it. I understand.
Thank you very much.
It would be helpful if
Not working right now.
right, it's helpful to be able to
It's
gauge that.
very helpful, I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the call to the public. We'll go on now to the consent agenda. The following items have been listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion of said items unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda. So we'll start with Supervisor Johnson. Do you have anything you would like removed this morning?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Okay. Supervisor Gold?
None today, Madam Chairman.
Supervisor Angus?
25 and 29.
25 and 29.
Oh, and
36. 36. Okay, Supervisor Watson.
I have none this morning, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda's item, what is it, 3 to 37 minus items 36, 29, and 24.
I believe it was 25.
25, 29, and 30, 36.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So the first item that was pulled is item 25. Authorize the chairman to sign a letter requesting the mojavecounty.gov domain be assigned to Mojave County for the purposes of conducting all official Mojave County business utilizing said domain. Supervisor Angus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was happy to see this because I believe that we're the only government entity that actually used the .us, and I kind of wondered why. Were we out of compliance somehow? But my main reason for bringing this out is that the backup material said the cost for this was only about $400 that had to do with IT stuff and the website. But actually, it's going to cost a lot more. We're talking about stationery, business cards, you know, everything that has our domain on it. Has the county done anything to, you know, estimate a cost for all of that? And why now? I mean, did something happen that made us have to change, or is it just something that you figured you had to do sooner or later?
So we have our IT director at the podium, and hopefully he can answer those questions for you.
Morning, Chairman and Board.
Morning.
I bring this item to you to consider obtaining the domain mojave.gov. Basically, what has changed is in the past, the federal government had a specific naming convention, and the naming convention required you to have the word, the name of your county, the word county, and a state abbreviation. And historically, when we had changed our domain from co.mojave.az.us, the goal was to create a domain that was easier to say, easier to communicate, easier to market, you know, which was a convenience for the citizen. In the recent past, we've been criticized for not using .gov. The federal government does have an initiative out there to get all state municipalities using .gov domains. That way, it's easily recognizable as a government organization and not, let's say, an organization pretending to be a government organization. We obtained mojavecounty.us originally because it was a lifetime registration, and the fees associated with the mojave.gov registration are basically what you pay to the federal government for them to administer the technical aspects of that domain. As far as transition to using Mojave.gov as our primary web presence, that could be something that could be done over a long period of time, similar to how we switched from the previous domain to mojavecounty.us. When we did that, we acquired the new name, we activated it from a technological standpoint, we made it functional for email, but we didn't rebrand mojavecounty.us all in one day. It took probably 5 to 10 years to actually get everything using mojavecounty.us. So the plan now I'm trying to present is to start that transition for Mojave.gov at some point in time. The feds have loosened their rules as far as naming convention. I found out about this at a recent meeting I went to down at, in Phoenix for ASIP. Pinal got issued Pinal.gov recently, and that was always something I wanted to get. I wanted to be Mojave.gov. I thought it was a simplification of the domain, easier to say, easier to communicate, and then it puts us in line with the rest of the government entities using .gov, similar to Maricopa.gov and those types of things.
Well, I understand all of that. I'm saying that it's going to be a much larger cost than what we were told here. So what I wanted to know from the administration is who's going to be paying, are the individual departments going to be paying that out of their budget? Is it going to be from the general fund if they need, you know, all new stationery and business cards? I don't, it could be a small cost, it could be a lot, I have no idea.
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Angus, and this is my understanding, and I think Nathan touched on this, that both domains will be available. There is no requirement at this time, unless the board wants to go in that direction, to go ahead and mandate a change for all our letterhead, all of our branding that we currently utilize. So to give you an example, as long as I have a stack of cards available, my mojavecounty.us will still work, and I'll still use those cards. When I go to get new cards, I'm going to go with the Mojave.gov. And same way with my letterhead. When I finish the stock of letterhead that I have, and most of the people's actual branding is internal into their computer. Like I have various documents that I can change today. So I'm going to do it as I can. I believe there's no direction that's being asked today to mandate that we modify or change the way we're currently doing business. So there is no
So if I put in mojavecounty.gov or US, it's going to take me to the page?
Yes.
Well, don't you think we should have maybe a time to segue so that we're all kind of on the same?
Madam Chairman, you know, we can do a couple things, but the simplest would be for me to send out a written email directive to all Mojave County users asking them to transition as soon as they possibly can and try to keep the cost as minimal as possible and use it just through attrition on the current documents that we are using. And I can do that fairly quickly.
Okay.
Can I make one point real quick?
Sure.
Just to help clarify. This is an application to the federal government for them to allow us to use this name. It's not a change. We're not saying we're changing anything. We're basically saying give the chairman the authority to sign the letter for the application, and the federal government would have to still issue it to us.
Right,
and then
but
if
they're
they
going
do,
to.
if they do, if we're successful in obtaining it, then we would obviously develop a plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Nathan?
Madam Chairman.
Supervisor Gold, Nathan.
Nathan, does the federal government control internet addresses? I thought they gave that authority away.
The federal government does not control internet addresses, as far as I know. There's a company called Aaron that does. They do control the .gov domain name, though.
Okay. We might want to grab Mojave with a J.
Really?
Just to eliminate any confusion.
There's actually a lot of misspellings out there, and they're called park pages, and there are some out there that are using misspelled versions of our domain now that are directing people to places, and a lot of it's out of foreign countries where they've bought those domain names, and it's an interesting kind of thing that's taking place out there.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Okay, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve item 25 as written.
Okay. Have a motion?
Second
And
motion.
a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 36.
29.
Item 29 was pulled by Supervisor Angus. This is to approve the adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 2020-021, establishing an emergency voting center pursuant to ARS 16-411, and approving the emergency voting procedures required by statute 16-451. So this is pulled by Supervisor Angus, and we have our county recorder, Christy Blair, approaching the podium.
Hi there. Just a quick question. In the resolution itself, it only says it pertains to the March 17th presidential preference election. Why only to that? Is this something that's going to be just specific for this, or is it something that we're going to carry on into other elections?
The statute that was passed is that each election has to be treated separately. So a resolution will come for each separate election.
Why is that? All right. I ask you to explain why the government does things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's government.
I don't know why it came about in the first place, actually, so.
All right. Well, exactly. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks. And with that, I make a motion to approve item 29.
Have a motion
I'll second the motion.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Supervisor Angus also pulled item 36, which I believe was requested by staff.
Yes, that was the request, that it be pulled.
Okay, I don't believe we need a motion for that one. So we'll go on now to our public hearings. Oh, we do need a motion for that?
Madam Chair, the request came because it normally would have gone on regular agenda, so it was pulled so that you guys could have any discussion and then vote up.
I'm sorry. You did tell me that, and I spaced it up. Okay, Supervisor Angus. This item was polled. It's to approve the adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution 2020-19.
Okay. Do we need an explanation or a motion?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Angus, in the past, when we had requests for roads to be accepted for maintenance and they weren't previously maintained, Supervisor Johnson had requested that those not be placed on the consent agenda. So even though this is a different case, this road is currently being maintained and is brought up to a paved standard. And now it's being requested to be accepted for maintenance as a paved road. We believe that it would be prudent to go ahead and pull it so it wouldn't be necessarily technically on the consent agenda, and Supervisor Johnson or Supervisor Gould could enter into any discussion that they might wish to have regarding this roadway.
Okay, well, Supervisor Gold, this is in your area, and I personally, I believe that any road that's improved within Mojave County is a good thing, and normally you have some concerns about that, so I'll let you address that and tell us what you think.
I have concerns about unpaved roads being accepted for maintenance, and since this is a paved road, I have no problem with it.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that item 36 be adopted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we will go on to our public hearings. The first item, number 38, I'll open the public hearing. This will be a discussion of possible action. Approve the adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2020-16. This will be a rezone of assessor's parcel number 221-22-001 and 221-25006 from a residential recreation zone to a commercial zone to allow for ATV rentals, zip line, associated commercial buildings in the Oatman area. So we have several people signed up to speak on this item. We'll begin with Mike Buck. Mr. Buck? You don't want to speak any further? Okay. And then our next speaker is Kathleen Jenkins. Kathleen is the fire chief in Oatman. And as she approaches the podium, she's going to be speaking in opposition with conditions. So Kathleen, you have 3 minutes to say what's on your mind, if you'll just give us your name.
Good morning, Kathleen Jenkins, Oatman Fire. So I put down opposition for a couple different reasons. There's some issues that we have. I actually support the plan if the infrastructure supports the entire policy or the entire plan that he has. Currently, he has horseback riding, zip lines, ATV rentals, petting zoos, gold panning, a photo studio, a burro bar, hiking trails, weddings, reptile exhibits, food and drinks, and then stores and shops. There's a lot of things that we need to look for, not only as the community of Oatman, as the fire department, but also as the entire Mojave County Board of Supervisors. There's some things that our infrastructure currently does not support with this project. Number one would be that we do not have adequate fire protection because we're 100% volunteer and I work on a $43,000 a year budget. We do not have an off-highway vehicle. Should one of the riders of a horse go down, one of the drivers of a UTV crash, we don't have a way to get way back in the desert to even respond to this call. The other issues that we have is with adequate water resources. Our current water district cannot support this project. However, at the last zoning meeting, Mr. McCarthy did mention that he's looking at putting a well in. So if that was met, that would work. We need to make sure that we have shelter and adequate housing for each of the animals that are out there, and that we have a plan in place by the county for there to be multiple horses to be utilized so that during the summer months or the hotter days, we don't have one horse that's running all day to where we're looking at the horses having issues. We also have issues with some of the businesses that are looking at being put out there because it's duplication of businesses that are in town. What we need is more of a quality business instead of the quantity of businesses to go out there. We need to make sure that we have a proper septic system and that EPA is 100% on board so that we have any type of projects that we have going on, making sure that there's environmental studies, that there's wildlife studies, and that there's sustainability studies done on each step of the progress so that we don't have issues with any of our habitats that we have currently in Oatman. We have the burrows, we have all of our desert reptiles, so we need to make sure that their habitats are not changed. We need to make sure that we have proper...
If you could wrap it up, you've got 30 seconds, please.
Yes, ma'am. Proper crossing for the roads to make sure that nobody is struck on 66 if they have to cross the roads because it's on two different sides of the streets. And then we also need to look at curbs and roadways because right now our roadways will not accept or will not support an extension of traffic. The good on this that I want you guys to see is the increased money that's going to come into our district, into the county. There's going to be a lot more tourists that come out. He's looking at being at 100% handicap accessible, which is huge. We just want to make sure that every step is good so that we don't fall on our faces.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you, guys.
Supervisor Gold?
Hey, Kathy.
Yes, sir.
Is this proposed rezone inside your fire district?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Okay, our next speaker is Gary Mesner, or Mercer. Are you present? Okay, we'll go on to the next speaker, which is Bobby Mercer.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm a business owner in Oatman, Arizona.
Could you give us your name, please?
My name is Bobby Mercer.
Okay.
I live in Fort Mojave, Arizona, as well as being a business owner in Oatman. I disapprove of the rezoning of this project that Tim McCarthy is presenting for the fact that if he was just doing a zip line and horseback riding, things of those nature, it would be good for our town, but him replicating 85% of our businesses that we already have in town, such as gift shop, old-time photos, weddings, gold panning, restaurant, bar, things of that nature, it's going to hurt the community and the businesses that have been there for many years. So we also have a petition here of business owners and residents that have signed the petition against the rezoning of this project. There's one there, and there's another. So that's pretty much it. We just, do we turn these into you guys, or?
I believe we have copies of those.
Yeah,
if they're the
copies. This
same
is
as-
all, they're not the same as the last month's meeting. This is a whole nother.
If you like, you could give copies to the clerk of the board.
Okay, and thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Rachel Mercer. And after Rachel, it'll be Lynn Solomon. I can't read your writing, so you'll be next if you want to move toward the front of the room.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Mercer. I live in Fort Mojave, Arizona, and I, as well as my family, are vested stakeholders in the Oatman community. I am coming before you to speak about the proposal for Tim McCarthy's project, which is about half a mile from the business district of Oatman, Arizona. And it's come to my understanding that much of the comments and opinions, we were told the property owners have to be within 300 yards of the property in question. And looking at the demographics of the map, most of those properties are either held by the United States of America or out-of-state holders who've owned the properties, some since 1901, without changing hands. So I don't know that we'll necessarily hear from those persons, but with it being within a half mile of the established Oatman Business District, I think it would be important to take into consideration the impact that would have overall on long-term sustainability of Oatman and the businesses there. As has been previously mentioned, Mr. McCarthy had mentioned replicating about 85% of what is already offered in business in the Oatman community. And with a venture this large, it brings up a lot of concerns. I would give the example of a large grocery store chain going into a small community and putting out these smaller grocers who've been there for years and then going under themselves because the demand wasn't as high to meet what they needed. Then the town and community suffers as a whole because now the small business owners have gone out and the larger
30 seconds
business owner. So my biggest concern and question is the long-term sustainability for the town and the impacts that it'll have with the duplication of businesses that are already established, if you can take that into account, the overall impacts.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Now you have the opportunity to give me your name, because I certainly can't read this.
Hello, my name is Lynn Solomon. I've lived in Mojave County since 1988. I've lived in Oatman for 5 years. I work for one of the oldest families here in Oatman for 3 years, and I've lived in Oatman for 5. And when my boss started her business, she had $6 days. These people families that have been in there for 30, 40 years in Oatman have made Oatman. They have improved Oatman. They have advertised Oatman. They brought Oatman to where they are now. You have someone that wants to replicate our town 1 mile outside of town and ride the coattails after these people have worked so hard for 30 or 40 years. Plus, all he's offered to our town and our community is to shuttle people, our potential customers, to Oatman with disabilities. Every day we have people with wheelchairs or the little scooters or walkers or canes. They understand the environment they're walking into. They don't have a problem with it. This is why they come to Oatman, because they come into a little town that is a whole different new environment. They don't want us to modernize it. They don't want us to make they don't want to modernize Oatman. They are taken away from something that somebody has built for so long. This town was invented in 1800. Why do we want to change it now? Why do you want to replicate it outside of town? As well as that last year we lost 5 boroughs, from the fire department to what we call the Rock House, because of traffic. The infrastructure. Our roads cannot handle any more than we already have. The loss of our boroughs was devastating to our community, to our area, because of people not abiding by the speed limit. The roads are traveled by our boroughs every day from point A to point B. They don't have a specific place that they go every day. This gentleman is wanting to bring in longhorn steers from different areas, other animals from different areas. What diseases are going to be brought into our area and wipe out our boroughs? There's a lot of things to look at. Our water system goes this big through our town. He's hooking up to it now to give water to his horses. Our town cannot take any more water. When boroughs or our water line goes out, our whole town is out. Could be 2-3 days, depends on how long it takes to fix it. The infrastructure cannot takes 45 minutes for an ambulance to come up to our area. We have no fire department. There's a lot of things to look at. They're only 1 mile outside of Oatman. Please take in consideration, there's a lot of things to look at on
Thank you very
both
much,
sides.
Lynn.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cynthia Yarrow. If you could correct my pronunciation.
It's yarrow.
I was close.
It's an indigenous wild water yellow flower, so to the northwest area of the United States.
Thank you.
My name's Cynthia Yarrow, and thank you, Board, for hearing me this morning. I'm relatively new to Mojave County, being here about 1.5 years. But I live in Fort Mojave, and I discovered Oatman. And the place is amazing. It's a historic Route 66, one of the longest stretches of the highway. It's a scenic byway as well. And the members of the community up there are just absolutely amazing. And I've heard it said over the discussion of the proposed site that Mr. McCarthy would like to put in, that this is a done deal. I don't know, I'm not a prolific speaker or anything, but I don't think anything is a done deal until the community is heard. And I'm just concerned that the infrastructure that it's going to take to maintain this facility, we don't have it up there in Oatman. And there are many people that built Oatman and sustain Oatman on their backbone. And I don't think we want to lose that. It's a historic tourist site. We all love our boroughs up there. A few of them have gone missing over the past couple days, and literally most of the women in there have adopted these boroughs as their own children, so to speak. And I joke about them being my family members. And when that happens, or when we lose one of them out on the highway, we sustain a huge loss. So my concern is that Mr. McCarthy would like to have this done, but I really like to see what the plans are. It's not just about the rezoning of this community. It's about the rezoning of people's lives and the history of Oatman. So I'd like you to take that into consideration before that rezoning is done.
Okay, thank you very much. Our last and final speaker is Tim McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Supervisors. My name is Tim McCarthy. My address is Old 66 Ranch, P.O. Box 66, Oatman, Arizona. I'm here today to talk about my project that I'm doing, and I got to be honest with you right now, I'm very sad at the misrepresentations that have been made by a lot of people about this project. I came in to this area a while back with my twin brother. This property has a sad history. It was purchased in 2017. I was supposed to be a partner with it. I was in the hospital at the time. I didn't get my name on the deed. My brother went on ahead and borrowed money against it. It was sold at public auction at foreclosure last year for $50,000. I went through the town of Oatman asking people if they would go and partner with me, anybody to help me say that. They had the opportunity to go purchase this property for $50,000. My brother had spent some time, cleared this property, and everybody knew what was going on. There was nobody went to get it, and I already had a lot of money into it, and I tried to save my investment. As far as what I plan on doing with this project, I plan on bringing possibly up to 30-plus jobs when I'm built out. It's a fresh, clean industry for Route 66. I've worked with the Route 66 Association the other day, went to some of their meetings. The taxes will bring people from buses back in. Right now, they're charging buses in Oatman to park, and this is what's deteriorating the bus population up there. These guys don't feel like they should have to be paying to park up there to bring people to shop. It's a valuable asset to local schools, rest homes, and people making field trips. I will be handicap accessible, and a lot of the disabled elderly or just people that can't get around very good will be able to access this property. As far as building, I'm coming in with shopping containers. I'm wrapping them in rough cut lumber. It's actually the shopping containers prove out to be, or the shipping containers, sorry, prove out to be a little more fire resistant as far as their resistance to flame, stuff like that, as far as spreading in, going through a metal barrier. We're putting solar power collectors on these. We're going to start with horses and build in phases as they're needed. As far as the horses, the comments made as far as I'm a professional horseman. I've been an outrider at racetracks, I've been a rodeo pickup man, and I've run my own pack strings in the mountains of San Juan Mountains up there, guiding elk hunts, stuff like this. I realize the importance of my livestock as far as trading anything out, building shades or anything like that. That would be the first thing I would address before I even put a horse in. As far as livestock diseases bringing in, everything I bring in has got to have a state health certificate and shipping and branding inspection. Going on to the water, I have talked with Steve Anderson, owner of the Oatman Water Association. He put in my tap the other day.
Mr. McCarthy, your time's almost out.
Oh, ma'am, okay. I thought I had longer. Okay, I just want to talk about what I'm doing with that. I do have working with the school, stuff like this. I am putting in a petting zoo. I am putting in stuff that's naughty in Oatman. I just look forward to working with the community.
Thank you very much. Your time is up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair.
Is there any questions?
Supervisor Gold has questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sir, did the water company have any reservations about being able to fulfill your water needs on your property?
Yes, sir, they did. And what I did last year before I started this project, I did acquire a bid from Brown Drilling right here in Brown Drilling in Mojave County. They had an estimated between 500 and 1,000 foot for a water well over there. There is good water, and there actually is a mine on my property that would be accessible to, that would pump clean water.
One of the testifiers mentioned the lack of any kind of search and rescue vehicles should some of your clients be stranded. Will you be providing some kind of a way to pick those folks up if something happens, if you have a horse go down or something?
Supervisor Gold, I appreciate that. What I have is mainly my horseback rides. I have struck the ATVs. I had a problem with this problem when we came out. Mojave Engineering came in and advertised that we're just coming in with the zip line and the OHV rentals. And when they never said anything about a petting zoo and never said anything about coming in with the other stuff, it was just strictly those two items, nothing about horseback riding. As far as the horseback riding, we're going to strictly to 1 hour rides on the property. We have enough land there to adequately produce the horseback rides. We have no business going out. I don't see any reason to take anybody out. The OHV, I actually talked with the planning department. I reached out to Silverton, Colorado, and they had the OHV rentals, and they did have problems with the OHVs. And I decided that if anything was ever done with OHVs, it would be done with a guided tour. That would be the only way you'd be able to go do that. I just would not want to put that on anybody else. Infrastructure-wise, a tax basis, how this gets built, we're bringing in essentially something that everybody wants to see. It's the lust of the Old West. The Asians and Europeans are not getting it, and it's a benefit to 66 and this whole area. I expect the school districts to use this coming up and having field trips. We have nature trails with plan identification. There's just a lot of really neat stuff.
Have you taken a look at what the property taxes that you're going to be paying versus the property taxes that are collected on that parcel currently?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As soon as I start into the phase of commercial, then I do get a raise in taxes, and I expect that being part of the community. I also, I'll share this real quick, is with my petting zoo. It's a donation box only, and what we did in Colorado was we took the donations, and every 3 months we drew a nonprofit out of the hat. And that's who received the donations for that 3-month stint. It worked really good. Did a lot of good, and plus a lot of these kids got to see animals that they never would have been able to see.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I'm sorry if you mentioned this before, but how about medical assistance should your visitors have emergency?
I'm not sure what kind of emergency.
Well, I mean, if you have a medical emergency, one of your guests, who's going to come? Who's it serviced by?
Yes, ma'am. I guess I'd rely on the same thing that Oatman does with the district fire department. I'm right across the street from the Oatman Fire Department. I guess I would rely on that. And I guess maybe I should look at staffing an EMT or something like that. That's not really a tough project to do, but if that covered the bases, then that would, if it was deemed necessary, I would think that's how we would handle that.
Can I ask the Oatman Fire? Can we do that during this public hearing?
Yes, you can ask come down and you could ask questions of that person. Yes, that's fine.
I want to ask the Oatman
Correct.
Fire.
Yes.
Okay. Is she still here?
Okay, Kathy, are you? Yes. Mr. McCarthy, while she's moving her way down to the podium, these items that you're planning in the future, they're going to be staged in. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. They'll be phased in. I don't have the money to come in here and develop this right off. I'm coming in with horseback rides and a petting zoo, and I'll work off of that. There is no horseback riding in this area right now.
Okay, so initially it's going to be horseback riding and a petting zoo.
Initially it'll be horseback riding and petting zoo, and we'll build accordingly. After an approval, then I have to go right back to the county planning department, and they have to prove any other buildings I have. As far as the septic system that was mentioned, I did get my perk test done up there the other day. I averaged 11.5 feet on my holes, and it was done by Perk Plus, and they were more than satisfied with the percolation rate of that property. But this will bring restaurants, adequate restrooms to the area too. This is something that's probably going to plague Oatman down the road with their sewer systems. So.
Okay, stay close. We may have more questions for you, Mr. McCarthy. Kathy, would you approach the podium and answer the questions for Supervisor Angus, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right now, if there is a medical emergency in the town of Oatman, what is the process? Who comes and services them?
So the person will obviously call 911. Our fire department gets dispatched out, and any volunteers who are in district will respond. We have an average of 3 to 5 minutes of a response time currently in Oatman. Depending on, of course, how far out the call is, it can increase our our response time. We do not transport, so we have to wait for an ambulance to come from Fort Mojave or Mojave Valley to pick up our patient, and then they will transport them. If we do have a trauma, we will fly them out to Las Vegas or to Havasu, depending on how bad their trauma is, because Havasu is at level 3, and our only level 1 that we have is in Las Vegas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Jenkins or Mr. McCarthy? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy. And so the commission recommended approval by an 8-to-1 vote. Does anybody from Planning and Zoning have anything that they want to add to the? No? Okay. Well, the public hearing is closed, and if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion for discussion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second for discussion. Supervisor Watson, go ahead.
With that, I feel a little uncomfortable in denying this request because the current residents of the Oatman area are looking for a non-competition structure in that area. In other words, we're doing fine, nothing else can come in, leave us alone. And I just have a difficult time dealing with that. As far as the project is concerned, I'm sure Mr. McCarthy will do his best. I can't really see how he's going to be degrading Oatman to the point where it's going to be so alarming that it's going to cause water problems, fire problems, and those kind of things. I've run horses for years. They're not really a big problem there. They do drink water, and if you've got them out far enough, they're fine to keep as long as you can shovel. But I would have a little difficulty in denying this request because of the non-competitive area that they're trying to involve. That's my comment.
Thank you, Supervisor Watson, and I agree with you. I think there's a lot of emotions playing a factor here, and I don't think we can make decisions based on emotions. I did go to Oatman during the bed races, and I contacted as many Oatman shop owners as I could. I was there from noon until 5 o'clock, walking the streets of Oatman, kind of polling the shop owners and the employees there. And what I got was there was about a third of the people that told me they were in support. There was a third of the people that said they were opposed, and there was a third of the people that said, well, we're okay with part of what he's doing, but not if he's going to be competing with what I'm doing. And so the town is really not together on this proposition, but this is a private property owner's right to use his property as he sees fit, and I think he has to provide a site plan to the P&Z Commission, and there's requirements and loops that he has to jump through in order to make this happen. So I don't think we're here to judge this man on what he might do in the future or his property. Does anybody else have any comments? Okay.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion's approved. Okay, thank you all very much for coming and speaking. Going on to the next item, 39. I'll open the public hearing. This will be a discussion of possible action. Ray approved the adoption of Mojave County Ordinance number 2020-01. This is an amendment to the Mojave County Zoning Ordinance, Section 37.A, Special Uses. I have no one's signed up to speak on this item, so I will close the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Can I have a motion to discuss, please?
We can discuss it right now. Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion to approve and seconded. Supervisor Angus?
Okay,
for
so
discussion.
this one, so I'm a little confused. So and I apologize if I don't remember, that's happening a lot lately. Did we ask for another policy? Because this 50 people or more, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, do we want to get that small? What was it before it was 50? If it's 50 more, they have to get a permit?
So we have Tim Walsh that's wanting to answer that question for you.
Supervisor Bishop, Chairman Angus, back around the time of Trump stock, the board asked staff to go in and look at this ordinance and basically to go in and revise it so that we could better serve the public with it, better have something that we could go to with it. What item 41 does, item 41 is our special use permit portion of the zoning ordinance. And basically what item 41... 39. Sorry. Get my book straight here. Item 39, sorry about that, I had fast forwarded. Item 39, what it does is it addresses the special use portion of the zoning ordinance that basically takes these types of events out of it. The special use portion of the zoning ordinance basically discusses if there are reoccurring events or permanent events going on in a certain area that a special use permit would be required. Previously, to address your question of the 50 or more people, previously we had the verbiage large assemblages of people. And large assemblages of people for me or the county attorney or whoever, or it's all whatever we try and define that as. So what we looked at, where we came up with 50 people was, okay, what amount of people may cause problems for the neighbors? What quantity of people does that start affecting the neighbors and their enjoyment of their property? And we came up with this 50. Is 50 the right answer? I'll be the first to tell you. It could be a number of different numbers. That was the number that we presented.
Okay. Here's my problem. This all came about before Trump stock, since you mentioned it. That, I believe, was an anomaly. You know, have we ever had an issue like that before? I mean, are we changing this thing because we had this one problem and now it's going to inconvenience so many other people? I mean, 50 people, that could be, you know, people gathering to watch a sunset. I mean, that's not a lot of people. So I have a big issue with it, where it's another government thing that people have to do, and if they don't know about it, they're going to be fined or whatever the heck it is. And again, I just think it's government overreach, and I don't agree. And if we're going to do it, I think we should vet it more, talk about it more as a board about this kind of thing. But again, we had this one problem with Trump stock, and it wasn't even a problem. The city, really, it turned out okay. I mean, it was just something that I don't foresee is going to happen very often. So I think that this is overreach.
If I may, excuse me, what Trump stock did for us was it helped us to see some issues that we had within our ordinance, and really we weren't able to respond to the requests that came in. Basically, we heard about that event the day before, and we had heard anywhere from 25 people to 1,000 people, or however many. I think it ended up being around this 50, which, again, this portion of it, and to answer the question, or to address the 50, like I said, that was a number that we came up with that basically said, okay, at more than 50 people on a property, then you may start affecting your neighbors. But if the board feels like, hey, 60 or 75 or 100's a better number, we're more than open to that. And actually, we will follow your direction.
Right. I just think there could be some unintended consequences for going that small.
Okay.
And people wouldn't know. And I think it can cause a lot of confusion. Again, it was a one-time problem, and this will be a all-the-time answer that people are not going to be happy with.
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Angus, there's some other things that the board should take into consideration on trying to control these types of activities. One is a 50 person over the course of the day, or is it at one time, is reoccurring a Super Bowl party once a year that has 50 people. One of the things that I'm always concerned about is the county getting involved in everybody's day-to-day activities. But there was concern over this Trump stock because it was supposed to be huge. And when we took a look at it, we had environmental health involved because of the amount of people and the threat of overnight camping, and the also understanding that there might be some RV violations. We had Public Works involved because we didn't know if the road right-of-ways would be blocked off, or it would inconvenience traffic, or something else that Public Works needed to permit. We had ADOT involved because of its proximity to 68. But, you know, there's not going to be one size fits all. And I think if I was going to lend some advice, I think I would recommend being very careful on regulating people's activities and getting involved in permitting things that, you know, we got the sheriff involved, but getting involved in permitting things that really could curtail and inconvenience the people in their use of their properties. Thank you, Madam
Right,
Chairman.
I mean, 50 people, you know, everyone maybe have been to the Super Bowl. You're right, about a Super Bowl party on someone's private property. Does that mean that they were going to have to get a permit from us? I mean, I just don't agree with it as it's written now.
Supervisor Gold.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tim, would this apply to commercial events or to private events?
Excuse me. So this specific one, and just if I can try and help shed a little bit of light, item 39 amends the ordinance, the portion that addresses special use permits. Item 40 is actually the item that discusses a one-time event on whichever property. To answer your question, Supervisor Gold, so item 39, say somebody is planning on having something every Friday for every other week coming up for the month. Say it's a business that doesn't the current use that it's been zoned to doesn't allow for that type of event. A special use permit would be in place to allow that type of event. So basically, say the convenience store on the side of the road, they want to have a farmer's market every other Friday. Basically, they would come for this special use permit and say, hey, every other Friday we want to have a farmer's market. It would go through Planning and Zoning Commission and come before the board for that approval. If, say, they wanted to do a one-time Trump stock out at a pizza shop, they would come before us and say, hey, we want to have this one-time event. That would actually go under item 40, where we create this new one-time special event. Does that help?
No, it does not.
Okay.
So if I have 51 people at my house and it's a not-for-profit event, I'm having a party, am I then supposed to go to Planning and Zoning to get a special use permit?
It would not be a special use permit. It would be a one-time special event permit.
So it would apply to the Gould Shindig if the Gould Shindig had 51 people?
Correct.
Okay, that's unacceptable.
Okay. Can I clarify that? That's I don't think that's exactly what it says, to be honest with you. Let me kind of parcel this out, if I may, Chairman. So the problem that we have with the current state of the special use permit, if you look at the current state of special use permit, for a special use permit, you have to get it for an airport, right? You have to get it for cemeteries. You have to get it for the layout and construction of model homes. You have to get it for landfills. You can see those are all permanent structures. Those are long-term. I mean, you don't just go around and put an airport on every other day, right? Those are things that you put for a long term. And it's like, hey, we want to put in an airport. We want to put in a landfill. We want to put in a cemetery. You get a special use permit. Well, clearly, the Trump stock event, that doesn't fit in there. It doesn't fit. One of these things is not like the other. Well, what we're talking about, what you're talking about, does not fall into there. And what they're trying to do is they're saying, okay, we're going to carve out and say a different provision. That's item 40. Item 40 would be the special one-time, one-off, this is what we're going to do, Trump stock event at Supervisor Gould's house, that kind of stuff. What this one is just saying, okay, for these special uses, for these permanent things, we're going to get a special use permit. Because something like what Tim was talking about, the farmer's market every 2 weeks, that's going to be going on for a long time. That is a permanent structure and so on. The one that you're talking about, Supervisor Gold, will be in item 40. And if you look at the definition in item 40, a special event is any temporary activity held indoors or outdoors on public or private property in which the public is encouraged or invited to watch, listen, participate, and so on. Now, if you're calling up your friends and saying, hey, let's have a Super Bowl party, that's not, you ain't inviting the public. You're inviting your friends and neighbors and so on. That's not going to apply. You don't get a permit. It doesn't. You don't have to do anything. None of that. Now, if you publicize and say, public, we want you to come in, and we want to have this event, this one time off, then that would be the special use permit where you have to get that. That's what it is. So to answer your question, no, you would not get a special use permit unless you're inviting the public.
So if I put on Facebook, anybody can show up at the Gould Shindig?
Yes.
Then I have to get a special use permit?
You're inviting the public.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, but going back, I would say going back to item 39 and your question, is this commercial or private? It's going to be applying to commercial most likely, is what I'm going to see, or anything.
Actually, it might be clear if it's open to the public. It's probably the
and we may want to
factor.
clarify that on 39. 40 does clarify that for the one-off special use permit. For this one, it's establishments of reoccurring or permanent enterprises. And I had problems with enterprises before, and we debated it back and forth. To me, enterprises is usually be something of a commercial nature or a business is what's going to happen for those. But that's something that's going to be there. It's permanent. It's long-term. It's like an airport, a cemetery. These are all things that are going to be there for a long time. That's 39. I don't know if that answers it. I'm sorry.
No, that clarify. I think the defining point is whether it's open to the public or not.
Yes, and we may want to clarify 39 more if that's really the place to go. Going back to Supervisor Angus's on the 50 threshold, that's a very valid question. We kind of grappled with that. The idea is, again, this is a permanent structure that's going to be there for time, for a long time. So it's a one time, you get the special use permit, you got it. You don't keep coming back, right? It is done. Special use permit, like a landfill, like an airport, like a cemetery, something it's the fairgrounds or the circus that's going on over and over and over and over for years and years and years. That's why, 50, that's,
Okay, before Trump stock, did we have problems? Did this ever come up as an issue? Because I say what happened in that situation was really unusual, and I don't think it's going to happen again. It was just
actually it's happening in Meadview.
With what?
Trump stock's coming to Meadview.
Okay, but honestly, they went and they did what they had to do, and then it was just at the end that it was all bad. But there are processes in place now. And my point is, are we going to change this, all of this because of something that will probably never happen again? Is that what we're doing now, is kind of looking forward and say what all the things that might happen in the future? So we've got to, sort of put these things that are a little repressive on our citizens. And I understand what you're saying, because this is, and I think it's, what I'm hearing from Tim and what I just heard from you didn't mesh. He was saying, this is personal, and you're saying this is, I understand special use permits and things like that. So it's really kind of three different things. That's why it's on these three different items. I just think that it's something that our citizens are going to have to deal with. And so I think that we should be a little bit more, sober about it and spend a little bit more time talking about it.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think those are legitimate concerns that you have, and that's why the board hears those concerns and you make a decision.
Okay.
I think, Madam Chair, I think the reason we brought this up, you bring up Trump stock, and that was kind of the one that set it off. And we had a problem because they had been dealing with the city of Kingman. Obviously, they followed no rules with the city of Kingman at all. And then they decided to dump it on us. But we have the liability to protect the people that are in our area, and we had no way to handle somebody just bringing they'd already advertised it someplace else, and let's say they would have been successful, and now they've got 1,000 people or whatever in our area with no permits, no health, no septic, nothing out there. We had no way to control that. So I think it's only going to control those sorts of things that pop up without it. I think it makes it easy for people to deal with. I don't think it's going to affect anybody at all in our county.
How would this have helped with Trump stock? I mean, that was, by the time we knew about it, it was the day of. And, I think we have things in place right now. Most people do things, the right way. So you're changing everything to include, something that might happen once every 10 years. And it was such a fluke and such an anomaly. I just have fear of us, changing things that aren't broken to try to fix something that isn't broken.
We had nothing in place was the problem. Right. We had no way to address that issue.
The day of, well, they didn't have a permit.
Right, and we had no way to do it. So if somebody just pulls, you're really not going to have that problem if today we decide as a board we're going to throw a big party. We can't get 1,000 people there. But these people have been advertising someplace else. So if, say, they want to advertise in Kingman or wherever without getting a permit, and then at the last minute, they'd planned this all along because Kingman's not going to give it to them, they move it to Mojave County. We had no way to stop them.
We had, wait. But they had to have, if it was going to be 1,000 people, they would have to have. We had rules now. If you have 1,000 people, that was what the concern was.
So if today, if we kept the rules as they are, 1,000, somebody says, I want to have 1,000 things. It would be difficult for me to determine whether they need a permit or not. I would have a difficult time. So what happens is, let's say Development Services comes to the county attorney's office and says, hey, there's going to be an event where there's going to be 1,000 people. It's going to take place in 2 weeks. We can't stop this. And they're saying they don't need a permit. You need to stop this, county attorney. So I would look and I'd say, okay, well, let me look at the special use permit. And the way it currently reads is, establishments of or permanent enterprises involving large assemblages of people. What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
You don't think 1,000 people is a large assemblage of people?
I think I could probably convince a judge at 1,000. But what if it's 500 people? What if it's 250? Let's change the hypothetical to 250 people. Am I going to go in front of, and the remedy is that I would go in front of a judge and ask for an injunction. The statute allows us to apply for an injunction to stop the activity from happening. That's what the statute says. And so the problem that we had was when we saw this ordinance, it was like, what is the large assemblage of people? 1,000, yes, absolutely.
50? But you think 50 is a large assemblage of people?
No, that's for the board to decide. You guys decide what it is. It could be 100, it could be 250. My point is that the current state is right now, it'd be difficult to enforce our current ordinance because that portion is vague. And so if any recommendation I give to the board is you give some clear definitions to the public as to what that large
if you had this ordinance and the day of the event, they had 200 people show up, you could have done something with what you have.
I would go back to them. I'd say, I'm sorry, but I don't know if 200 is the largest assemblage of people.
Oh, really? You would say that?
I would. I'd bring it in front of a judge. You got to think about bringing it in front of a judge and say, well, judge, this is a large assemblage of people, and they're going to argue 200. I don't know. There's no precedent for it as to what is the large assemblage of people. I think I'm pretty good at what I do, but if they have another side,
so basically we have to decide what that number is.
Well, what I'm suggesting and what was originally suggested is that this be clear so that staff has a better opportunity to say, hey, they need a permit for this, and they have violated the law, and so we need to change that. That's what I would say. I mean, you give me
there.
No, you give me a hypothetical of 200. Let's say it's 100 people. Do you think 100 is the largest assemblage of people?
Madam Chairman?
Just 1 second. I have a question for Ryan.
Sure.
Our job as the Board of Supervisors is to protect the health and safety of our citizens. Does this change in the ordinance do that?
Well, what it does is it helps clarify things. It helps so that if somebody wants to do an activity, they want to do an event, then they know exactly what they need. We'll just use the Trump stock example. it's hard to know whether they needed a special use permit or not because we didn't know what their large assemblage of people would be. I think in that one we probably could have, because I think they were anticipating a lot more than 50 people. I think they were. But you get a different event, and Supervisor Angus makes a valid point. You know, how often will this happen? We don't know. We don't. And I'm not saying this is, you know, this is the answer to all questions. I'm just saying this ordinance as it currently stands should be better, should be addressed and should be changed so there's better direction to the public and to our office, to everybody involved, to know exactly what that is.
I think would this help protect our liability should an event occur that gets out of hand, perhaps, in the future?
Yes, and I think that's what Supervisor Johnson is getting at, is we want to make sure that the public is protected, that we reduce any kind of liability to the county, that those things are met. And that's the purpose of, okay, we have these things that you have to do. You know, someone from the public can say, okay, I need this special use permit. And then we know, okay, you meet these, you have to meet these requirements. And then and then once you meet those requirements, then you can go forward. And those requirements, the purpose of the requirements is to make sure the public is safe and so on. So.
Okay. Supervisor Angus.
Right. Well, again, I'm not against public safety. I just, you know, I don't want to put out repressive things that we don't need because of something that happened that will never happen again. That's it. That's how I feel. I think we should table this, honestly, and have a much broader, so we can maybe research a little more. I mean, we can't possibly be the only rural county that is grappling with this. I'm sure did you look into that, what other counties do?
Yeah, we did. We certainly did. We looked at other things. And to me, the main gist that I was telling the department was that we really want to identify when does somebody need to get a special use permit? What is the definition of those things? And a lot of what we're talking about will also be explained in item 40. I haven't played all my cards yet because we're not at item 40 yet, right? I mean, so I'm only playing some cards on item 39 because we haven't got to item 40 yet. So.
Okay, Mr. Hendricks, you had a question or a comment?
Madam Chairman, in all things, when we bring things in front of the board and there is considerable discussion by the board members on disagreement on how the approach is made by staff, what I would recommend or I would like to see is to take everybody's voice into consideration, to actually have staff reach out to the different boards of supervisors, try to get a better feel for what the board might want to see, and take that back, rework it, work it, and bring it back in front of the board at a later date. Because obviously, we're not, on things like this, we need a strong support by the board, I believe, and I don't feel that we're achieving that today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Supervisor Gold.
I think it's wise that we actually quantify this rather than just making the statement of large groups of people, because if you've got a number on there, then we can't end up in a lawsuit over requiring one group to get a permit and requiring another group to not get a permit. If it's quantified with a number, then everybody knows what that number is, rather than being subjective. So I think whatever that number should be, that we should argue about the number, but probably not whether we place a hard number there. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Gold, I agree with that. I just don't think 50 is the number.
Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to recommend possibly that we look at item number 39. And Mr. Walsh, every establishment, every business throughout Mojave County has a maximum occupancy. Would be my recommendation that we look at the maximum occupancy and then a number above that for the concern of the health and safety of our citizens. So for instance, let's say that the Harley-Davidson folks on Beverly want to do a hamburger hot dog fry once a month. But some of our regulations prohibit that, but this would make it that a little bit easier, I believe. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Basically, they would come in for a one-time special use permit.
Right, and there's been a lot of problem with those types of activities for years. So if we can clarify that, that would certainly be a benefit to many of our businesses. But I think what we're concerned about here is the ability for establishments to handle the extra occupancy, such as restrooms and parking and safety and a number of other issues. So my recommendation would be to have the number above maximum occupancy for each of the establishments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Bishop, Supervisor Watson, I appreciate that recommendation. I agree with it. I think that portion would come in, though, once it's been applied for. It would be hard for us to say, and I'm just trying to think through it right now. It seems that it would be okay if they're going to have this event that's recurring every month. They want to have a hamburger fry. It would be hard for us to say if they're only planning on having, and they know they're going to have more than 50. We need that threshold to say, okay, if they're planning on having more than 50 people, then we need to look at the special use permit, look at their occupancy, okay, what can the property hold, and work with them through that property. But this 50 gets us that trigger to say, okay, yes, we need you to come in. We'll work with you on seeing what your property can hold and set up that special use permit. If it's less than that 50, then we're going to say, hey, we don't care. You guys can do what you want over there. You're not meeting the threshold that would kick in this special use permit. It's not required. So I agree with you that definitely with that special or that occupancy should be a factor, but I believe that's after they've met that threshold, saying, okay, we're doing this every month and we're going to have more than 75 or 50 people attending it. If that, I hope that helps. Or
Certainly.
Okay.
And possibly all we need to do is just up the number. I don't have any problem with that.
I think, Mr. Chairman, or Madam Chairman, I think we're getting ahead on this item. I think the number is, because this is going to be for a commercial venue mostly, where somebody has, like you said, a motorcycle shop or someplace where they have a recurring. They no longer have to get permits all the time. They get a one-time permit, and whether it's 50 or whatever number we set it on, they get it because they use the inside number that they have. They say they have 75 seats inside, and they're saying we're going to invite 50 people, so we got 120. You know, the number just means a 50 is when they get the permit. So I think this one we should just go to the next item to argue about. I think that's where the complaints are coming from, or the questions.
Okay. Is that your motion?
I think we already have a motion in a second.
Chairman Bishop, we already have a motion and a second on the floor to approve.
Okay. We ready to take a vote on this? Okay. Jenny, let's do a roll call.
Supervisor Watson?
Yes.
Supervisor Angus?
No.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gould?
No.
Chairman Bishop?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, going on to item 40. I'll open the public hearing. This will be a discussion on possible action. Ray, approve the adoption of Mojave County Ordinance Number 2020-02, amendment to the Mojave County zoning ordinance to include Section 37.Z special events. There's no one signed up to speak on this item, so I'll close the public hearing and open it up for discussion. Mr. Walsh, you want to clarify this for us?
I think I might yield my time to Ryan. He does a better job at explaining these items than I do. This item basically is the one-time event portion of what we just discussed. So the previous item had to do with a recurring event, a special use permit at a property. This is a one-time event. Again, it does have the language. Basically, now on this one, if it's expected to be greater than 50 people, a one-time event, it can be, that permit would be administered or given administratively. So they would come into our office, say, hey, we want to have an event at my house, have 100 people over, or I guess just to cover it, have 51 people, 50 people at my house. I'm going to invite the public. They come into our building. We issue the permit just over the counter. Take that back, not over the counter. We take their application, we review it, make sure it meets our requirements, and then we would issue that permit. That permit from 50 up to 200, we are requiring only 15 days. Get it to us in 15 days, you'll have your permit. Over 200, a special event over 200, we would accept that application, we would bring it before the board for approval. That's basically how these, this one differs than the previous, is it's a one-time event. Again, an event greater than 50, less than 200 would be done administratively. Greater than 200 would come before the board. For that event greater than 200, we are then requiring a 45-day approval, or 45 days to be able to let us schedule it with the board and bring it in. Previously, our ordinance required, I believe it was 60 days. It was at least 60 days because it had to go both to the Planning and Zoning Commission and then to the board.
That was the use permit. This only one.
Okay, this one, I'm sorry. Got those mixed things. So previously it did come before the board previously. However, it was, the verbiage in that one was, again, the large assemblage of people. So this one puts in that definition. This one also includes, going back to the Trump stock reference, items J and K provide a little bit more information and basically allows the county to provide an injunction, as Ryan had alluded to, in the case of, you know, an event that's going to have 1,000 people there with no permits. It allows us to go before the judge and request that injunction. So, be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions? Supervisor Watson?
You mentioned again that this is basically for residential.
So this would apply to residential, but it would apply to a property that isn't previously zoned for that use. So for example, the Wallapai Mountain Park, somebody wants to have an event at the Wallapai Mountain Park. We would not be involved because the Wallapai Mountain Park is already zoned for that. If somebody wanted to have the fairgrounds, even though it's not, we don't regulate zoning for the fairgrounds, but say at the fairgrounds they wanted to do a fair there. That doesn't apply to this because that property's already been zoned for that type of use. So this would apply to properties not that aren't zoned for the use that's being proposed in this one-time event.
Designed for those types of events. I understand. My point is this: the Wallapai Mountain Park, Mojave County Fairgrounds have facilities to handle a great number of people. They have the number of restrooms required, they have a number of the parking spaces required, and they have also security arrangements. There are a number of other things that protect the health and welfare of our citizens. So if you decide you want to have a party at your house and you want to have 50 people there, so what we need to do, or what you need to do, is to provide services for those 50 people to make sure that maybe your laboratory facilities don't get overworked, that you have proper parking and you're not infringing on your neighbors for this event and those types of things. Is that correct?
And I'll go back to Attorney Esplin's comment previously that if it's an event open to the public, then that's correct. If I'm just inviting my friends over individually, then it would not apply.
I don't know of anybody with the sanity that would invite the public to their residence, but that could happen, I suppose. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. I have a question, and I actually have an example. Next week, we're having a ribbon cutting for our new residential drug treatment center. It's in a neighborhood. It's basically a house. We've invited the public. It's open to the public. We expect between 70 and 100 people. Are you telling me with this, I would have to get a permit?
Yes.
Really? For an hour?
Is that in the county or the city, though?
Oh, it's in the city. Okay, but let's say it's in the county. Well, let's just say it was in the county. I would have to get it. And what if I don't?
We're going to send you to jail.
Well, so, all right, how much would the permit be?
Permit,
250.
we don't, $250.
$250 for an hour-long thing. So people aren't going to do this, and it's going to be a detriment to this. I don't know. I think really we need to really think hard about the unintended consequences of some of these things that we're doing here today.
So, Mr. Walsh, with that example, a person could come to the board and ask for a waiver of the fees. Is that something we
can always bring it. We could
a
always
one-hour
bring it to the
event
board
like.
Absolutely, we could bring that to the board for their approval. Correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think the example that Supervisor Angus giving, points out a pitfall, but I don't think that's something that we're looking to regulate. What we're trying to regulate is if, say, that same street there, they decide to have a party and invite the public, and now there's the same 175 people showing up, but now it's a different crowd of people that are showing up, and the neighbors want to know, hey, we didn't let these people come in here. The streets are blocked. They can't get in or out. Where the group you're talking about is, there's people coming for a ribbon cutting to smile and get their picture taken. It's a different setup.
So now we're going to do them by who they are? I don't know if that's such a great idea.
Well, of the chaos that can be caused in the street. I mean, if, my street, I don't want the people across the street, having 300 kids or 200 kids there without a permit and having everything else. And just like they're saying now, they could bring it to us. If like your ribbon cutting was in the county, you could come and say, I'm looking for a waiver. It's like, I don't even know that anybody would care,
We have a gentleman, he's in your district, Gene, who does these Halloween and Christmas things at his house throughout the evening, probably 100 to 200 people, flow in and out. Would he have to get a permit?
I don't believe so, because he's not having over 50 people at a time.
Well, there are over 50 people at any given time.
You think so?
Yeah.
I've been to it almost every year, and yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed the example. I was talking to. I was asking Chris a question. I missed the example, so I apologize.
Somebody who has like a open house with people coming and going. You don't know how many are going to be there at any given time. There could be 10. There could be 100. So does that person need to spend $250 to get a permit?
No, I don't believe so. No, but here's a possibility with this too. And you bring up some great points. It's possible that we could put in here an exemption or include the duration of the, if it's a ribbon cutting, if it's an open house lasting for an hour or 2 hours, those wouldn't apply. Or, some sort of qualifier as far as the duration. This is more geared towards our intent with this was more geared towards these large assemblage, these large events.
You know what they say about good intentions. Okay, so I make a motion that we just table this until we can come back with maybe more answers with what we said today. Maybe you can take that into consideration.
Okay.
I have a question for Mr.
Be glad to second your motion.
I have a question.
If we could just clarify, a motion to continue rather than...
Motion to continue, yes.
Now I forgot what my question was.
Just like me.
Well, I have a question while you're waiting. We've worked on this for how long now?
It's been a couple months.
Been a couple months, so how much longer we want to go? We've had...
Until we get it right.
Well, that's according to each individual person, has everybody had a chance to talk to the attorney and give their ideas on this before the meeting today? Yeah. I had time to meet with the attorneys and talk to everybody on this. We should put a time limit on this to say when it's coming back, if something needs to be done.
Okay, and then can I amend?
Just a second, I remember what my question was. Mr. Esplin, what are the problems if we put a clause on there with discretion? So that, if there's special circumstances and, like a residential party or something, that maybe the development services director would have discretion to.
And I know you will.
I'm not a big fan of saying there, in certain circumstances or with discretion, they can waive it because, you want to make sure that it's applied uniformly, and I think there's room where there could be some room for abuse and other problems if that were to happen. Not that they would do anything inappropriate, but you never know. I'd rather just stick with what it is. I don't think it's a good idea to say with discretion or they're allowed to in their judgment, in their good judgment. I think you're going to run afoul of a couple things. One thing I will add to Supervisor Angus's, just some of the hypotheticals, for example. I mean, you give the example that you gave. If your ribbon cutting was out in the county, and the second component of this is the enforcement part of it. You know, if Development Services came to us and said, hey, you know, we have this ribbon cutting that's going to take 1 hour out in the county, I would probably say, let's not use our resources for that. It's similar to like a police officer. When a police officer decides, you know, I'm going to issue a ticket or I'm going to give a warning, there's some professional discretion there in the sense of, you know, we're probably not going to do that. But so that's kind of one thing to think about as well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue.
Chairman Bishop.
Chairman Bishop, can I make one request? If we're continuing the item, when would you like it brought back?
60 days?
Sure, whatever works for you guys.
Does that sound reasonable?
Okay.
Okay, so I amend my motion to table this, continue this agenda item for 60 days.
A second, amended second.
Chairman Bishop, if I may, I'd just like to point out on the previous item, there are a number of references to item number 40 creates a new portion of the zoning ordinance. It's section Z that addresses this. The previous item had added language that referenced to that. So it basically said, for recurring events less than 6 months, this is your item. For those that are one-time events, see section Z of the zoning ordinance. Section Z will not exist until we approve it. So it may be
Consider the other motion.
It may be best to table both at the same time, offer that 60 days, and then be able to bring them both back and examine them then.
Okay, so we'll have to vote on this one first, and then I'll need a motion to reconsider item 39. Okay, so all those in favor of continuing item 40, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Item 40 is now continued for 60 days, and I'll entertain a motion to reconsider item 39.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on item 39 to reconsider.
I don't think that can happen. You voted against it, right? You have to be on the winning side.
Good point.
So it has to be a person from the winning side.
Oh, you're right. I'm so, it's true.
So I guess I can make that motion myself to reconsider. So I went ahead and made the motion myself to reconsider item 39. Is there a second?
From the prevailing side.
Good catch.
Okay, there is no second.
It will die for lack of a second. I'm just going to caution you. I think there's a legitimate concern that Development Services has that one half is enacted and the other half is not. You're going to have, for the next 60 days, let's hope that no special events come up. So.
Okay. So we move on to item 41, but before we hear this testimony, I'm going to call for a 5-minute break.
Second.
Am I allowed to second that?
Go for a little longer than 5 minutes.
5 minutes to figure it out.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Long meeting.
Yeah.
Where are all the people? I thought it was going to be packed.
Yeah, they're not here, so we
can bring it back.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. Most welcome break, so I appreciate everybody hanging around. This has been a long meeting. So we're going to go to item 41. I'm going to open the public hearing, setting as the Board of Directors for the Malibu Road Improvement District. This is going to be a discussion of possible action, right here, the protest and objections from the resolution of intention 2019-03 for the Malibu Improvement District project. We have several things to decide here today. We're going to decide if there's enough protests. If sufficient, the protest shall be a bar to any further proceedings in making the improvement for 6 months from the date of the protest. That's one issue. In any event, the board may vote to terminate the Malibu Improvement District project described in the resolution of intention. So there's actually three issues that we'll be looking at today, but I'm going to open the public hearing and take testimony from those that are present, and we'll proceed from there. So the first item I want to call attention to was an email I received early this morning from Darla Professes. She's a 4th grade elementary teacher, and they just lost a classmate to an accident in Golden Valley, and so she felt it important to be with her students rather than to be here. So I just wanted to acknowledge that had she been here, she would have been speaking in opposition, and I certainly understand her wanting to be with those little kids this morning and try to comfort them and help them to understand. So with that, I'll call the first speaker, Robert Badura. And then after that, it'll be Sharon Frankfurter. If you could make your way to the front, Sharon. Mr. Bandura, if you'd give your name, you have 3 minutes to tell
Robert
us.
Bandura. And board, yeah, I was hoping I'd be a little bit later in this whole thing, but anyhow.
Somebody's got to be first.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah, make me nervous. Thank you. Beginning on this whole thing, we had the prayer, and it said, in the words in there, as wisdom. Okay. I just want to keep that in mind. I believe that I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I think you saw the photos of the water going down the roads. Did you see that? Okay. So without any irrigation or anything or water control, it's going to cause havoc to the people, to their driveways. And dang, why am I so damn nervous? Okay, regroup.
I've been at the podium before. It's very nerve-wracking.
Have you?
So.
Yeah. But you're probably used to it. Anyway, so I'm not going to go into that because you can see the damage they can do. And you've seen all that. You've already heard all that. The protest after November the 18th showed that we took out 16 of the yeses, of the noes. But at that time, I didn't know it was a revote. But in common sense, it just said that, okay, it went way down below the 51% for the improvement. And then after that, that meeting, after it was written by Jim, that Supervisor Bishop made a big error. And I don't think he made a big error. I think you had some common sense. Yeah, and I've got that right here if you need it.
No, I haven't.
And like Ron, he's always had also the same common sense. It's like this whole thing. And once again, on this last protest, we have shown that the majority is against the pavement. I mean, the majority shows it there. It's all in black and white. No matter how many loopholes that Jim keeps us going through or how many things he's going to do to say, okay, this isn't right because this here is not notarized or whatever. And from what I have seen, my notarized stuff was from notaries saying this is the way you do a protest. And I mean, everything, I mean, the signatures are there. It's common sense.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and your
Okay,
time's up.
thank
Sharon Frankfurter, you're next, and then online will be Chris Hendricks. Chris, if you could make your way down, please.
Is my time started, or? Good morning. My name is Sharon Frankfurter. I live
Could you
at...
speak into the microphone, please?
Good morning. My name is Sharon Frankfurter. I live at 3428 West Malibu Road. I'm very much against chip sealing our road, primarily because for a large number of people on both sides, this issue has nothing to do with the road. It's all about money. The people who are against it genuinely cannot afford it and do not deserve to lose their homes just so other people can realize a higher profit margin off the sale of their home. The other issue is that every single person who lives on Malibu purchased their home on a dirt road. It is grossly unfair that 22 people should be allowed to force everyone else to give that up just because they've changed their minds. Some people like living on a dirt road. We chose those homes, and we'd like to stay there as is. Making us pay for it is just adding insult to injury. It's very likely that several of us will end up losing our homes when you put a lien on it that we can't pay. And then what recourse do we have? According to ARS 48903, that first petition, as Mr. Ron Gould pointed out at the first meeting that I attended, should have been to establish the district so that we would know that there were going to be engineering fees, etc., and so that there wouldn't be a $1,000 price, supposedly. All of the problems that we are having are because that crucial step was missed. I pray that all of you have the wisdom to do the right thing and terminate the Malibu Road Improvement District. Then, if Jim wants to try again and start from zero, do it right, establish the district first, then, if he can get the votes, which I know he can't because they don't exist, then he can try to get us to pay for his road so he can get more money when he sells his house, because that's all he really wants anyway.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Mr. Harry Hoyer. Oh, I'm sorry.
It was Hendricks.
Chris Hendricks. Harry, you're up after Chris. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Chris Hendricks, and I lived on Malibu Road for almost 15 years now. And as was stated, I bought that house fully intending to live on a dirt road. I don't want to live on a paved road. We've had too many people drive way too fast on it, even as a dirt road. The feller that used to live in the house across the street got his whole fence wiped out by a guy coming down the road too fast and lost control and took out the whole fence. I happen to live on the only corner, and if somebody had lost control, they'd have come through my house. I know that's happened on McConaughey, which is paved. I had a friend over there, had a vehicle go completely into his bedroom because they were going too fast and on drugs. So you can't say it doesn't happen. It already has happened on McConaughey. And they'd just drive faster if it was paved. I live in the first 4 houses on Malibu, and they go way too fast in front of my house. Like I say, being it's dirt now. If it's paved, they'd be doing 60 miles an hour instead of 50. That's my concerns, is the speed that they'd go. And the property damage they'll cause from accidents on there. Because there's a bunch of people that go way too fast in that housing development.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, we have Harry and Bridget Hoyer. Do you guys want to speak together or separately?
Madam Chairman, Supervisors, and support staff, my name is Harry Hoyler. I live at 3285 West Malibu Road in Golden Valley. I stand before you again and in continued opposition, adamantly not wanting to have this road paved. Malibu Road is fine just the way it is. I moved there because I like country living. If I wanted to live in the city, I'd have moved to Kingman, and I did not. Malibu Road is well maintained by the county. The road tractor comes out there. Ms. Bishop, I've commented on numerous occasions that we appreciate the work they do. They do a very good job on the road as it is. If this road is paved, we are going to have flooding issues. The county has said, oh no, we don't have flooding out there. Well, you need to come out. Oh, by the way, I guess I need to mention all of the belly dumps that came out and filled in down at the end of Malibu Road. We do have flooding problems out there, and this pavement will exacerbate the problem. Also, Malibu Road on the east end is used as a truck turnaround, 18-wheeler. I guarantee you, you pave Malibu Road and Huntington, they're going to come down Malibu Road and on to Huntington and then back over to Mechanico. I used to drive a truck. I guarantee you, if I could drive on a pavement as opposed to a dirt road, I will do it. This is going to be a financial hardship on people. I had one lady, when I was circulating the petition, said, well, I guess I can choose between my medications and this infernal road I don't want. I don't think you all really want to do this. I'm adamantly opposed to it. I suggest at this point in time we dissolve this board and we do away with this project altogether. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bridget Hoyer? Okay, all right. Thank you. Next up will be Bradley Morrison. Mr. Morrison here. Okay. On deck will be Judy Thompson, if you want to move down to the front, please, and then Barbara Smith.
Good morning. I guess it's still morning anyway. My name is Bradley Morrison, and I live at 3284 West Mechanico Road, and I'm a parcel owner in this district. The Malibu Road Improvement District was formed with a two-parcel majority out of 74 based on an $1,165 total cost estimate. This estimate has been called a miscalculation by both organizers at previous board meetings, and Mr. Henley's comments before the board also support that statement. The organizers never mentioned that the cost could be more than 3.5 times the figure used during the formation of the district. So this district was formed based on a miscalculation and would not exist if a more accurate cost estimate was used during its formation. The parcel owners have proven with this protest that a majority is no longer in favor of this project. The organizers took over 3 months to get the signatures needed to form the district, yet protesters have the same number, 39 of 74 ballot protests, in what was effectively an 18-day protest period during the holidays. Given more time, additional protests could have been returned. Mr. Consolado is now trying to have this valid protest overruled on a legal technicality by citing Arizona Revised Statute 48918C that requires all persons signing the protest or their agents or attorneys to appear and show cause why the protest should not be overruled. I believe the protesters have already shown cause by signing the petition, which has been witnessed, notarized, and validated. Arizona Revised Statute 48918D lets the board make a better decision in this matter. This statute states, at the hearing, the board of directors may disregard all signatures of which the right to sign does not appear upon the records of the county recorder and which are not supported by evidence at the hearing. The evidence is the 39 protests that have been witnessed, notarized, and validated and are supporting documents for this hearing. Also, Mr. Esplin has made it clear at previous board meetings the importance of the word may. The statute states the board may disregard all signatures, but that is not mandatory. So the board may also use common sense and uphold the sufficient protest and its supporting evidence submitted by the majority of parcel owners in the district. This district would not exist if a reasonable estimate was used during its formation, yet it continues because the organizers got the needed signatures to form the district using a totally inaccurate cost estimate. Protesters has proven that the majority is now opposed to this project, and we should not have to do this again. Any vote to prolong this process is a vote against the wishes of the majority in the district. I ask that you please uphold this protest and follow due process to dissolve this district so no more time or money is wasted on a district that was faulty from the beginning. This board has the authority to do just that. That's all I have. Thank you all very much for your time.
Judy Thompson. Judy Thompson.
My name is Judy Thompson. I live at 3194 West Malibu Road. I am adamantly opposed to this resolution, as it was signed based on false information. We were given an estimate that was not even close to the actual cost of the project. And then when we signed up for it, it was not submitted to the Board of Supervisors until the estimate was raised nearly 300%. How can this even be legal? How can we be expected to accept something that we never approved or agreed to in the first place? We were duped into signing this project, and I wish that I could tell you how I really feel. Thank you.
Barbara Smith.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm opposed. I am here once again to protest the Malibu Road improvement. You have heard from what I believe is the majority of people that live in Malibu, on Malibu. Through this whole process, I have seen only evidence of a very few parcel owners who are still in favor of this project once they found out the cost was a far cry from what we originally were told. I understand the legality of the process, but I strongly believe that once it was confirmed that $1,100 was not at all feasible, we should have had the choice to stop it. The originator of this proposal refuses to believe that the majority of his neighbors cannot afford the exorbitant increase and has done everything in his power to push this through, knowing that so many of his neighbors are on fixed incomes and are struggling to get by. Many have medical expenses and medication costs that they can barely afford now. If this goes through, it would cause a hardship on many of them. He has accused the protesters of having a lynch mob mentality. This is far from the truth. Are we angry? You bet. But this is not an emotional issue. We are just fighting for something that we believe in and will affect us financially. I know this Board of Supervisors is responsible to follow the law, but you also have a responsibility to your constituents. You have all the facts in front of you. I hope that you will put a stop to this travesty. An estimate of $1,100 was presented to us, and we were told very convincingly that was all it was going to cost. Now it's up to over $4,000, and we will probably exceed that amount. Please do the right thing today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes our speakers, and I will close the open meeting. And we have decisions to make here today, but I want to say that, Jim Consolano, I'm sorry. Come on down. You're the last speaker. So I take back my closing of the public hearing.
The hearing is still open.
Okay. I don't know how I could forget Mr. Consolano.
Yes, Gene, how could you forget that?
I probably just made some points in this room by doing that. Jim, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, Board of Supervisors, Jim Consolado, 3024 Malibu Road, Golden Valley, Arizona. I understand you got a letter from Darla Propellers. However, she's not even on the protest list. You know, this is not about me. I don't know how this has been made about me.
Point of
Ladies
order.
and gentlemen, if you cannot show respect to the speaker, I'll ask you to step out into the lobby and wait.
I reiterate, this is
Jim,
not
I'm going to start your time again.
Thank you. So I reiterate, this is not about me. I happen to be one of the protest organizers. I happen to be part of the legal standing majority that still stands until you rule in a few minutes. You know, I want to rise above the fray here with all of the emotions. Today, it's not about emotions. It's not about necessarily what's fair in terms of what's right or wrong. It's certainly not about anybody being popular, whether you're running for an office or whether you live in a neighborhood. The task today is to decide if we have a sufficient protest. And I'm here to tell you that the protest is insufficient based on several factors. The first factor is, as was cited, 48-918, item 9C basically says that those who are protesting must be here in person to defend that, to show cause why their protest should be overruled. There's 39 people on the petition, and looks like 6 or 7 in favor showed up. So that's far from the 39. That's not even a majority of those people opposing. Therefore, by statute, by law, they have not completed the necessary requirements. But I'm going to go one step further. The petition itself was garnered in a way that has lent itself to a lot of speculation. And I can contend, and I have evidence to prove, that not all of the signatures that were under affidavit were actually witnessed by the 2 people that signed those affidavits.
Excuse me, the person that just spoke, would you leave the auditorium, please?
Sorry. They were.
Okay, so now I want to take a moment here. Whether or not, let's just put it this way, it's certainly, there's more than probable doubt that those signatures were dropped off. They were signed and then they were later picked up. I'm going to give you a document for the record today that's going to give you more evidence to that point. But specifically, I have just a couple quick things to put on the board here. Exhibit A is the statutes. Let's see. How's that going to look? Okay. Let's look at this. Okay, those are the statutes, and right there, 9C, 48-918, clearly says. But let's go a little further. Exhibit B, here is a petition that was not initialed. According to the affidavit, the person that was taking this swore in front of a notary that they witnessed it, and that was so denoted by putting an initial next to the names. In this particular case, the initial was next to a printed name, not next to a signed name.
So, Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, can I just get these things out real fast? I mean, this is important. Right there, there's a second one. Right here, here's the third one. You have 3 petitions that are legal documents that cannot be accepted. They were turned in on a certain time frame that they had to be in. They are invalid. You remove 3 from the 39, and you have an insufficient protest below 51%. That's the letter of the law. Here's the document where Mr. Bandura signed.
I'm sorry, Jim, I have to stop you there.
All right.
It's just not fair to let you have more time than anyone else, unless anybody has questions of Mr. Consolano.
I do.
More time, I think I need to have a little more time.
Harry, don't make me send you out in the hall. Mr. Esplin, please go ahead.
No, if I may, I'd recommend we close the public hearing, if that portion, but I have some questions of Mr. Consolato, and I also have some questions generally to the people who are out there as well, if I could do that.
All right, then I will close the public hearing. Mr. Esplin, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so we're just trying to verify who signed what and things, because that's something that the board's going to need to know. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people who came in and spoke, who had, we confirm, have signed a protest. Is there any person, by a show of hands, is there any person in the audience here who did not speak but has submitted a protest? Can I have you come down and just give your name so that I can check that off? You don't need to speak. We just need to know your name so we can have that. Yeah, well, there could, I'll verify. I've got multiple property owners.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I'm Bridget Hoyler. I live at 3285 West Malibu Road, and I oppose the paving.
I'm sorry, Bridget, your last name?
Hoyler, H-O-Y-L-E-R.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Can I go?
Yes. Yes.
My name's Elizabeth Piquet. I'm at 3104 West Malibu Road.
It's BK?
Paquet,
Yeah, I got it.
P-A-Q-U-E-T.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Name is Christopher Cooper. I live at 3176 West Malibu Road.
Hold on a second, Mr. Cooper.
Number
Yep, got
12.
it. Thank you.
My name is Marna Phillips. I live at 3375 West Malibu Road, and I'm here on behalf of my husband Edward and myself.
Thank you.
Number 8.
Yeah.
Faye Cooper. I live at 3176 West Malibu Road, and I oppose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I haven't found.
That's with Christopher Cooper, number 12.
Got it.
Good morning. My name is Paul Frankfurter. I live at 3428 West Malibu Road, and I oppose the pavement project.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Donald Thompson. I live on Malibu Road, and I'm definitely against this.
My name is John Van Engelen. I live at 3410 West Malibu Road, and I'm opposed.
Hold on a sec, John.
What was the last name?
John Van Engelen.
Oh, Van England. Okay. 33.
My name's Robert Smith, and I live at 3284 West Malibu Road.
Where's that one? Oh, Bob Smith?
Smith. Robert Smith.
Married to Barbara?
Beg your pardon?
Is your wife Barbara?
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. And then if I may just ask Mr. Consueto a few questions, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Jim, if you wouldn't mind.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those exhibits that you put up there, if you could put them back up. Not the law one, but the other ones. And if you could point out specifically which ones are you saying are not valid signatures? I think you said there were 3.
I can tell you, I can put them up also. One that's not valid is Corrine Minuti. She is not here.
Okay, hold on a sec. Let me just, okay, 27, thank you.
Right here was her petition invalid. Right there, no initial by her name. Corrine Minuti. Sorry, I'm shuffling these papers. The other one here is Janet and Coleman, Janet and Bart Coleman, also no initials by either of their names. So that's an invalid petition. That's number 2. And the last one is Rhonda Hughes Capriglio. Again, no initial by her name, but there is an initial by her printed name, which would make it invalid as well.
What was the last name?
Pardon me?
The last name on that?
That name there would be Rhonda Hughes Caprigliani.
Number 4.
And she did write you a letter. She can't afford this, but she's in the Mexican Riviera right now on vacation. So I want to give you
Didn't you
again,
point out Bob Vernetti earlier was...
Pardon me?
Was the Vernetti one that you questioned as well?
No, it wasn't Vernetti.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Consolado, why, I don't understand why you believe it's invalid because they're not initialed. Can you
If I
explain
go to
that
get married and the judge does not sign my marriage certificate, I'm not married. It's a legal document. It was necessitated so much so that you even put the section of the ARS statute out in the notice. So if we can't follow a legal document, if we can't follow the letter of the law into provisions required, why do we have any law whatsoever?
but they're signed. I don't understand that. Where does it say that?
They are not notarized. They are not notarized. They were signed under an affidavit. Mr. Bandura then swore on the affidavit that he had witnessed these signatures, but he did not initial these. So what does that mean to me? It means that either he was being honest and he didn't initial them because he didn't witness them.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. So where it says, I, Robert Badura, the petitioner, has witnessed and initialed each signature attached. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Now, there was 3 of them. Some of them did have initials, but they weren't at the right location, is what you're saying? Show me which ones are those.
The only one that had the initial that was at the wrong location was right here, Rhonda Hughes Caprigliani.
Okay, so you're saying that because the initial is at the top.
The initial, the hand printed, not the signature.
Got it, okay.
Even if it was just the first 2, they still didn't sustain this protest. They still do not have a majority that can overrule the standing majority. Yes, this is a technicality. These are technicalities. This whole project, the improvement district, it's a technicality. We're following the letter of the law.
Okay, that's all the questions I had of Mr. Consolado.
Thank you.
If I could just have one moment to review this, Chairman.
Sure. Also, this is completely, may I present this to the clerk? There is more information in here spelled out so everybody can understand it.
Okay, does any of the board members have any questions, comments while we wait for Mr. Esplin?
I kind of do.
Okay,
Thank you.
Supervisor Angus.
So we keep hearing about the letter of the law and the percentage 1 and 2, but we are a board that votes. Just so everyone knows, we can vote yes or we can vote no. Or else, why would it even, again, it's that same argument like the taxing districts, why would it even come before a board if we had to vote a certain way?
That's correct. And one thing to remember for just purposes of discussion is this petition was brought to this board asking for our assistance, and we did form the Malibu Improvement District, and we're here today to decide whether or not there's enough sufficient protests to stop this for 6 months, or we're here to decide there is not sufficient signatures, and therefore we'll proceed and we'll get an estimate of what this road improvement is going to cost. Because everybody here, no matter what you say, we don't know what that cost is yet. I mean, we had the verbal estimate that really wasn't valid because the person that made that verbal estimate wasn't thinking about all the processes that have to go through to do this road properly. And then we have the social media back and forth that put the cost up to an exorbitant amount, more than this initial guesstimate was, and that's what it was. It was a guesstimate. So going forward, if that's what happens, we'll get an actual estimate as to what this road's going to cost. And I think there's still remedies at the end of that to stop this process. Whether or not we vote to stop the process is something that we'll have to deal with up here. But if we go forward and get an estimate, the people that are within the district will then have a real number that they can take to the bank. Mr. Estlin.
Thank you. I appreciate your patience. Sure. So the board has a decision to make, and there's really three items that have been agendized and three things to think about. One is we have now heard the objections, we've heard the protests, you've reviewed the evidence, and now you have to determine whether there has been a sufficient protest. If you determine that the protest is sufficient, then there will be a bar to further proceedings on the project for 6 months. That's really what this protest is all about, is whether the protest is sufficient to bar it for 6 months. If you find that the protest was sufficient, then they cannot do any work on the project for 6 months. If you find it is insufficient, if you believe that they did not meet the requirements, then you could then order the project to go forward today. That's available to you, and you could do that as well. The third option, regardless of which way you go, you could decide today that you wish to not go forward with the project, and you could say we want to terminate the project and be done with the project itself. Those are the three things that are on the table before you today. One thing that is not on the table is dissolving the district. We're not dissolving the district today. It's not been agendized. There's certain issues that have not been met, so we're not even going to talk. I recommend you don't even go down that route, even talking about it. Now, determining whether it's sufficient or not. I have calculated 11 people who have come here, who have come and have signed the petitions to protest against it. There's 11. There are 74 property owners. In order to get a bar, to find that the protest has been sufficient, you have to find that a majority of the people have signed it. What we have given to you is, we have given you 39 signatures. So there are 39 signatures, that is a majority, that have said, we don't want this project to go forward. For you today is to decide whether those signatures are enough. Is that enough? Has there been enough evidence to say that a majority are opposed to this? Now, Mr. Consolato brought up the point about whether these people have to be here. And what the law says is not exactly what he's saying. Here's what that says. It says 48.918, it says the notice. So the notice that we sent out to the people here says, the notice shall require all persons signing the protest or their agents or attorneys to appear and show cause why the protest should not be overruled. That's why we included that in the notice. We put in there specifically, it says shall require all persons signing the protest to appear and show cause why the protest should not be overruled. The next one then says, at the hearing, the board of directors may disregard all signatures of which the right to sign does not appear upon the records of the county recorder and which are not supported by evidence at the hearing. So I don't read this as meaning that you have to be here and you can only count the people that are here. What I read that is that those are things that you take into consideration under D to determine whether the protest has been sufficient. And the burden of proof, so to speak, is on the protesters. They have to convince you that, yep, a majority of the people have signed and have gone on. Now, Mr. Consolato has provided some evidence to you to suggest that some of these signatures should be disregarded. That's for you to decide whether you want to disregard them or not. And if you think, yep, he's right, those three shouldn't be counted, then that would take it down the threshold, and you guys could find that it's insufficient. But it's really up to the board to decide whether you think the majority has made it or not. And if you think you have, then I would recommend you motion to find that the protest was sufficient. If you don't think that it's made it, then you motion to find that the protest is insufficient. Or in any event, you could say, look, I'm motioning to terminate the project because there's just, for whatever reason, you don't think it's in the district's best interest to move forward with the project. And you could do that at any time as well.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Johnson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The way you're reading this, you're saying that the first part says shall.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we all agree, well, most of us usually agree with what shall means. But then the second part says that if you don't have 39, if you don't have the majority of the people showing up here, you may accept petitions.
Yeah, I think
but you still, that's up to us if we want to accept petitions, but it says they shall show up to begin with.
Well, the notice shall require.
Right.
So the notice shall require it. You're right.
Right.
And this is something you can take into consideration. And if you, Supervisor Johnson, thinks, you know what, this is important enough that people need to be here for this, and if they're not here, then I'm not gonna validate that signature. Then you could do that.
Thank you.
But you know, I think if you had, like, let's say you had 36 people show up, you know, that's a pretty compelling argument. Versus if you only had one, that's a pretty compelling argument to the opposite. Here we had 11 people. And when I count 11, anybody who were joint owners, I count them as one. So there was a couple of joint owners. I just count that as one because for our purposes, it's one property owner of each one. So you're aware.
Are we ready for a motion?
Do you have anything else, Supervisor Johnson? Okay. Supervisor Gold? Supervisor Watson? Supervisor English, you wanted to make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we terminate the project.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jenny, I think we'll do a roll call on this.
Supervisor Watson?
Yes.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Gold?
Yes.
Chairman Bishop?
I'll vote yes.
Motion carries.
I think at this point, the Malibu Road Improvement District will be terminated, and it's an opportunity to...
Yeah. So if I may clarify, Chairman?
The project is terminated.
Yes, it's the project. This project. So the project designated in Resolution of Intention 2019-03 is terminated. That was the last part of the agenda item.
Corrected. Thank you. So it's an opportunity for the community to heal itself, to regroup, and if this is something the community wants to do, they can bring it back, and we can form whatever's necessary at that time. Okay.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, for point of order, I wonder if we could move items 49, 50, and 51 to the next portion of the agenda.
We also have a request to move 43 up. It is 43 is.
We have out-of-town people that need to be traveling and
Needs to go.
Okay, we'll give a minute for the auditorium to clear out.
Can we just move item 49 to say about it, like, just to the next meeting?
sure, move it to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Sure.
And then we won't keep you here.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a change in the order of the items. We're going to move 48, 49, 50, and 51 up, and then we'll go back and revisit the other ones. So, item number 48, discussion on possible action, Ray, approve the purchase of a replacement aircraft not to exceed $300,000 solely funded with the use of Mojave County Sheriff's Office RICO funds upon formal approval by the Mojave County Attorney's Office, and further authorize the Mojave County Sheriff's Office to sell aircraft November 7-3 Juliet X-ray, transferring the proceeds into the MCSO Airplane Replacement Fund. So Sheriff Schuster.
Well, I would say good morning, but we're past that point. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, distinguished members of the board. I would like to introduce you to our pilot. He's our chief pilot. This is Michael O'Connell. And when I say chief pilot, he's our only pilot. But he does a wonderful job for us. He is very qualified, and I'm happy to have him up here to answer any technical questions you may have. A little background on this item. Currently, the Sheriff's Office has 2 aircraft in our aviation division. They're utilized primarily for jail extraditions and to shuttle people around the county quickly as possible. We also use them routinely for aerial surveillance. We do allow our aircraft to be used by various county departments when needed and available, and we've reached a point now where replacement is vital. Our current aircraft have very high airframe hours. In fact, one of these aircraft has over 10,000 hours, which is well above the industry standard and raises significant safety concerns. The other aircraft is currently grounded. Is that correct, Mike?
Right.
As it does not meet FAA standards for flight. So we're seeking authorization to purchase a replacement aircraft, and we're looking at a model that is capable of longer flights and will carry a heavier payload. This will allow us to avoid extraditions on commercial airlines, which is very costly and raises significant safety concerns to the general public. And in addition, we need an aircraft that will allow us to transport our SWAT team rapidly to anywhere needed in this large county. The cost to replace this aircraft will come at no expense to the taxpayer. I'm going to say that again. The cost will come at no expense to the taxpayer. It will be purchased with seized money taken directly from drug traffickers who are arrested transporting their poison and their ill-gotten gains through and across our county. We would also like authorization to sell one of our existing aircraft and use the proceeds to augment our aviation division. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions of Sheriff Schuster? Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop. Sheriff Schuster.
Sir.
Why is it you only want to sell one of the aircraft?
We want to repair one of the aircraft with the lower air miles to use for shorter distance flights for fuel economy.
Like the Colorado City for me and...
Yeah, absolutely. If you can fit in it, sir, you're more than welcome to use it.
Really appreciate your thought process on that. When I was out there the last time, I believe I remember there was a helicopter out there too. You still in possession of that helicopter?
Apparently not, sir. We haven't used the helicopter in years, and nor do we have any plans to re-implement that program.
Subject. That's fine. Thank you. That's all I have. I'd be glad to make a motion for to approve the purchase.
I'll second.
I have a question.
We have a motion, a second. Supervisor Johnson, go ahead.
Why are we not looking at going for seized vehicles?
For seized aircraft?
Yes.
We have been looking at seized aircraft, and nothing has come available that suits our need. A lot of the military grade aircraft that we may be able to get a hold of simply is too big, too expensive, and not feasible, and nothing has come across the pipe as far as local seizures on aircraft. So we're using seized funds to purchase what we need.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sheriff, I took a look on Google, of all places, for what it costs to operate that 414 aircraft.
Sir.
They're saying that that aircraft costs about $300,000 a year to operate.
Absolutely not, but I would defer to Mr. O'Connell. He did significant research, and he's flown these before. So let me turn it over to him.
Okay.
Mike.
The website I think you're talking about is based on maintenance costs for a certain amount of hours flown a year, and we won't reach that even close.
How many hours will you be flying the aircraft?
I'm going to assume maybe 100 an hour or 100 a year.
See, then that begs the question, is it justified to have the aircraft if we're not going to utilize the aircraft?
We hope to utilize it even more once it's available to other departments.
I believe that aircraft burns 22 gallons an hour of fuel at about $6 a gallon.
Realistically, it's about $5 a gallon. It just depends where you go. And we do hope to.
You're not going to Terrible Herbs, so.
No, it's definitely more.
No, I just have a concern with the ongoing expense of operating the aircraft.
I have.
Supervisor Gould, if I
we're
could
trying to build up our forces, and I just wonder whether this is the best place that we spend our money.
And I appreciate the question. Supervisor Gould, to answer firstly, is it necessary? Absolutely. We have to have the ability to respond quickly. That's first and foremost. If I have an incident up on the Colorado Strip right now where lives are at stake and I need to get my personnel up there quickly, the planes we have are of no use to me. So I need something that has the capabilities to allow me to do that and the payload to allow for the weight of the equipment needed. Again, there's huge saving costs when we're talking about extraditions. The last one we did was commercial because the current planes only have a distant range of, I don't know, a couple of states over, where this one is able to get much farther. We paid over $4,000 just in one extradition, and that is routine as part of doing business. So,
but if you run the math on that one extradition, it would have been the $4,000 that you spent would have been less than the operating cost of this aircraft.
But we do more than one extradition.
No, I know, but just that particular, I crunched the numbers on that. It would have cost you $11,000 to extradite that person if you're looking at this aircraft and the amount of fuel that it burns.
Well, it's not anywhere close to the numbers that I was
but I'm looking at what the newspaper reported, so there you go.
That must be right then.
Sure.
Sheriff Schuster, I have a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the range of the current Cessna that we fly? How far can you go with an extradition safely?
I think the farthest we've gone is Texas. The plane is significantly slower than the one we're looking at, and it just does not have the capability for long distance. I understand that the one we are looking at now, if it's approved, pretty much is coast to coast. We can get there. And you got to set the costs aside too. In all reality, I don't like having inmates transported on public aircraft. You know, we pick up some really nasty people routinely, and the last thing I want to do is put them around your family or your friends or the general public, and sometimes we're forced to do that. So that's a big part of why we're making this request.
So in my earlier days of flying extraditions, the inmate would sit behind the pilot or behind the co-pilot. Is this newer, bigger, better airplane going to distance that inmate from being able to grab a hold of those controls and cause a situation?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, where the inmate will be placed in the new plane, we'll have an officer between him and the pilot at all times.
Okay, and then I have a question for your pilot. As far as safety goes with a twin engine compared to a single engine, is there anything there that we need to know about?
Flying over the Grand Canyon at night in a single engine airplane is very scary.
So if your engine goes out on a single engine airplane, you're
yep.
You're praying,
daytime,
and if it's a twin engine airplane, you can feather it and bring it
Absolutely.
into an airport.
And that includes instrument flying into the clouds, going into California. It's low clouds all the time in the morning. I usually cancel the flight.
Okay, and then for Sheriff Schuster, the maintenance on this airplane is obviously going to be quite a bit more. Will RICO funds help with any of the maintenance or the expense of owning a bigger, better, faster airplane?
Well, we will continue to split costs with Public Works. They've agreed to that. RICO funds, I don't believe, can be used for continued upkeep of the airplane. However, again, if you remember in my request, with the sale of one of the planes, that would be sufficient money to get us through several years, in my opinion, based on our operational needs, if that money goes back into that fund.
Okay. There's no further questions?
I have a question to follow up on that, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Supervisor Johnson, go ahead.
What is the maintenance budget now, and what is it projected to be?
Remember, we have two 10s.
Okay, roughly, looks like we're spending about $20,000 a year in fuel. Insurance is about close to $10,000. We're estimating with the new aircraft, we've got a low estimate of $19,584 for fuel. Then there's some oil charges that are minimal. Annual repairs, $4,750. That's why I was confused, Supervisor Gould, with the numbers you pulled up, because there's nowhere close to what our projections came to. But we believe these projections are correct. So I can't speak to what site you saw, but 300,000 is significantly different. Maybe that includes the pilot itself and overall expenses. I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
What all, they might be depreciating the aircraft over that period of time in a more commercial application rather than a government application.
Sure. And one point I would like to make, something we've been discussing and are going to pursue. We pay an enormous amount of money on fuel, whether it's our vehicles or our aircraft. We're going to try and get an above ground tank out at the hangar to have direct delivery to start saving on that cost. It varies depending on the airports we hit. Sometimes you're paying $2 an hour or $2 a gallon more at one airport versus the next. So it would be nice to get with a local company and have an above ground tank on site to have significant savings in fuel. And we're going to look into that.
I don't think I got the answer I was looking for. We got off on something else, and maybe I misunderstood. Did you say we're spending $20,000 now on fuel, and with the new plane we're only going to spend $19,000?
We're showing $20,000 on the dual planes that we have now. Even though one's grounded, it was active. Between the two, we're at $20,000 in total fuel. So yes, there will be an increase. Let's say it goes up $6,000 a year, and we will split that with Public Works.
And the maintenance, but the overall, like we have a budget right now for maintenance for the airplanes. Let's say $100,000. Is it going to go up to $200,000 or?
Yeah, it's the actual maintenance will double, but we're not talking a $100,000 maintenance budget. We're looking at $2,500 a year for on a single versus $5,000 a year on a twin, unless there's a major breakdown, which is also an issue with the existing planes. They're nickel and diming us to death. So we're trying to get out while the getting's good, still be able to recoup some of the money out of the planes that we have and get into something that's much more practical.
Okay, so do we have a number that says this is what we're at now, and then when if we get this new plane, this is where we're going to be? Because the annual inspection is how much?
The annual for the new plane is $4,750. The annual inspection on the two that are currently in our fleet are $2,660, so about $2,000 more.
All right. Okay, I guess that'll answer it, I guess.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Like you got your airplane.
Thank you very much. And I would add to the board, I did have a Super Bowl party, and I was going to invite you, but I already had 47 people in attendance, and I didn't get a permit, so just didn't work out this year. Have a good day, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Item 49, discussion of possible action, Ray, approve changes to personnel policies and procedures, section 2.2. Item 49.
Chairman Bishop. Been requested by another board member that we carry this over till the next meeting for further review.
Okay. Is that in the form of a motion?
Certainly.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be continued. Item number 50, discussion of possible action, Ray, approve a new lease agreement with the Mojave County Fair Association for a period of 3 years and authorize the chairman to sign the new lease agreement. Okay. Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop. Bring this item to you. Actually, I had two items bring to you from the fairgrounds. One was an authorization to spend dollars for the new entrance to the fairgrounds. We had a bid from a company here locally. I think we had distributed that information to you, but the company that gave us that bid came in and withdrew their bid because the building materials that they had intended to use on the project were not the same as what we were requesting.
So we'll bring that back at another time. Okay.
And that was the reason why I wanted to go ahead and bring the lease to you folks at this point because of the improvements that we were going to be looking at. We were going to be looking at an improvement not to exceed, I believe it was like $40,000 or something to that, but it really would have benefited the appearance and attraction of Mojave County Fairgrounds. We're still going to attempt to do that. We'll get another bid, and we'll also have the local management for the fairgrounds put together a proposal. But with that, I bring to you item number 50, the simple improvement of the new lease. It's the same lease as there was last year, only this is a 3-year lease. Bring that to you and make a motion to approve.
Have a motion? Do we have a second? And a second.
Discussion?
Supervisor Johnson.
I guess my first part would be that I think we shouldn't go more than 2 years, but I'd like an update from the county. Maybe it would be from risk management, if risk management is here. We had that where they went out and looked at everything and find out if all of the issues have been taken care of from before.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Johnson, we did an inspection. We've done multiple inspections over the last year at the fairgrounds. They've made some significant improvements on some of the things that were going on there. The last inspection we did was in November, toward the end of November, and there were still, I think, 3 high priority items that needed to be addressed. I did speak with the superintendent of the fairgrounds, Tim. I did speak to him about this about a month ago, and suggested that he go ahead and get those things, those high priority items fixed. I haven't had the chance to speak with him since then, and we haven't done a reinspection to see if those have been fixed. That's pretty much the current status right now.
Thank you. I guess those are the things that concern me. We do a $1 a year lease, and it doesn't seem like I mean, Supervisor Watson's bringing up what the proposal is right now, but there should be an awful lot of money being generated out of that place to keep it up to standards. That's the problem I have. But I have no problem extending the lease, but I'd rather see it for 2 years. That was all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You would rather have a shorter lease?
A 2-year lease and a
2-year
lease, yes.
I'll amend my motion to approve a 2-year lease.
And I'll amend my second.
All right, Mr. Woods, you signed up to speak on this. Do you still want to speak?
Good.
Okay. Okay, we have an amended motion and amended second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And finally, going on to item 51. Discussion of possible action, Ray, approve the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to sign a letter to the Director of Arizona Department of Water Resources requesting whatever actions are necessary to make the determination of designating the Wallapai Valley groundwater basin as irrigation non-expansion area in accordance with ARS.
Motion to approve.
If I could, please.
Go ahead.
Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. Bishop, I'd like to bring a change, minor change to the application for the INA, and it comes with good logic. The Wallapai Valley groundwater basin is defined by the Kingman Basin and the Wallapai Basin, and also the Gregg Southern Subbasin area. The Southern Gregg Sub area has a water equivalency in excess of 100 years. So if we were to exclude that portion in our application, it tightens up dramatically our application to Arizona Department of Water Resources to show that the 2 areas in the Wallapai Aquifer are actually the ones that are in depletion. So the change I would like to make, if that would be okay with Supervisor Johnson, is as this. Approve the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to sign a letter to the Director of the Arizona Department of Water Resources requesting whatever actions are necessary to make the determination on designating the Wallapai Valley groundwater basin less the southern Gregg sub-area as irrigation non-expansion area in accordance with Arizona Revised Statute, Title 45.
I'll make that amendment to my motion.
Okay, we do have 3 people that have signed up to speak on this, but we have a motion on the floor,
And I'll second the motion.
and we have a second.
And
So,
thank you, Supervisor Johnson.
do you still want to speak, Kathy? All right. Come on down. You'll be first then.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairman, Supervisors. My name is Kathy Tackett Hicks. I'm a 30-year resident. I do development projects in Mojave County, Southwest Mexico. A lot of my projects are based on sustainable development, and part of creating good policy is having really good base information. I absolutely support the county's desire to try to get scientific data to understand and characterize the basin. I absolutely support the county's desire to better understand the water draws that are currently in the basin. But I am concerned because we haven't met those parameters yet, and I am concerned that the request for an IA is based upon, or the INA is based upon the report that was recently submitted. That report that was recently submitted does not contain realistic assumptions of what's going on in our basin right now in terms of water draws, and it does not accurately identify those draws. And I'll just show you quickly. We don't need to get crazy on this. I would say that this is an item that I brought to the attention of several people, including Supervisor Watson and Mayor Miles and Supervisor Bishop immediately, and I really want to thank Supervisor Watson because he did go out of his way to speak specifically with farmers to get actual numbers. It's unfortunate those numbers were not reflected in this, and I'm unsettled that we would want to proceed with something as stringent and stringent as an INA if we're not going to have the base data correct. And I'll just show you real quickly what I'm talking about, because I think at least at a minimum we should have our 2019 water use demand identified correctly, and it's not. Do I need to turn this? So I've got 2 things. So the report identified 2 scenarios, one an A and a B. An A is, or one of them was a 25% alfalfa water use with a 75% orchard use, and the other was flipped, so 75%. First of all, we have no alfalfa going on in our basin right now. Several years ago, there was alfalfa farmed, and it proved to be a failure, a complete failure, because it's not economically sound to do that. I understand the goal of this report is to kind of identify maybe a worst-case scenario, but it's unrealistic to think that alfalfa is going to be grown here, and that's a huge number in here because alfalfa uses about 6 acre-feet per acre per year. So if you look in here just real quickly, alfalfa in the one was shown at over 10,000 acres in 2019, and we know that that number was 0. In the next flipped scenario, it showed 3,455 alfalfa. And what concerns me is you start out with a water use, if you move over to the right here, which already has numbers which are not part of the equation. They have not been used. They're erroneous. The orchard numbers are not what they're identified here. Do I think we're going to get to those numbers in terms of orchards? Yeah, I absolutely do. Agriculture will expand, but I think we have a problem with setting precedent on a report that we know is not correct, and that is really unsettling to me. I think instead of using alfalfa as a base assumption, we should probably use like row crops. Row crops would use 2 to 3 acre feet. It really adjusts and modifies and manipulates this data a lot better than what we have right here.
Kathy, I need to interrupt. Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Unless
well,
anybody
I
has
hope
any questions for Kathy.
That's a bummer. Thank you.
Next up would be Alan Barbridge. Okay, and he's passing. And then we have Steve Schmidt. All righty. Thank you very much, Kathy. And I just want to take a point of privilege and thank Mr. Barbarish for this well-written letter that he sent all the Board of Supervisors. Very helpful. Okay, we have Supervisor Gold. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ryan, I took a look at what how the state defines the irrigation non-expansion district.
Yes.
And it says that people can still irrigate 2 acres of their property.
I'm not familiar with the statute very well, but I believe that's correct, but I don't know. I mean,
I didn't see anything in there that had the size of the property. It just said 2 acres. So I was curious, does that mean a 40-acre parcel gets 2 acres to irrigate, and a 2-acre parcel gets 2 acres to irrigate?
I'm unfamiliar with the 2 acre. I thought it was 10 acres.
I thought I saw 2.
I'll try to find it.
But my other question was, when you start dividing properties, if you took your 40-acre property and divided it, would you then, say a 4-way split, would you then be able to irrigate 8 acres?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know the answer, but that's a legitimate question.
Because I think as a natural right, people should be able to irrigate the amount of land that it takes to sustain them. Because I think otherwise you're robbing them of the ability to sustain themselves on their own property. But I believe this is all set by state statute. I don't think we get to define what an irrigation non-expansion district is.
That's correct.
That's right. So maybe Mr. Estman can get that information to you later, because we can't really change it, or...
It makes a difference on how I vote.
Then we'll wait.
I don't think I'll be able to get it in time. I'll try as fast as I can, but I'm...
Okay.
That's really putting pressure on.
Yeah. Speed
we do have
lawyer.
a motion on the floor and a second to approve with the change that Supervisor Watson brought up, eliminating the Gregg subbasin from the letter. Amazing how quiet it can get in a board meeting.
I think it's 10 acres.
Can't you ask Google?
Yeah.
I think that's where I got it.
Oh, maybe you should not then.
I'm looking at 437.
Irrigation non-expansion district in Arizona.
According to Arizona Water Resources Research Center.
Not ask at Google or Alexis or
Post it on Facebook and see what answers you get.
I think the neatest commercial I saw yesterday was the Doritos commercial, the two cowboys, the dancing cowboy, yeah. What was
Madam Chairman,
the name with the deep boy?
can I provide a little cover for Ryan Licking?
Yes, that would be
All right.
comforting.
45434 talks about, and this is an important part about irrigation, non-expansion areas. It says if one's established for designating an irrigation non-expansion area, an irrigation user may irrigate within the proposed irrigation non-expansion area only areas of land, acres of land, which were irrigated at any time during the 5 years preceding the date of the notice of the initiation of the designation procedure. The limitation on acreage which may be irrigated shall continue into effect until the director makes his determination, which means that if our letter goes to the director, DWR, if you all decide to send it, and the director takes on the investigation, there's a period of time where only this would apply and people couldn't go out and irrigate acres that weren't irrigated the previous 5 years, during the time. So if an irrigation non-expansion area is created by the director, then there's a grandfather clause that says that if your acres have been irrigated or substantial investments have taken place to irrigate land, that area could be grandfathered and not be prohibited from being irrigated. And while he continues to look for that, I'll also weigh in on the matrix study is what Kathy Tackett Hicks referred to. The matrix study was actually commissioned by the bill. It was Regina Cobb's bill that she was able to get funded. It was overseen by the DWR, by the Department of Water Resources. It was a flat bottom study that only analyzed water down to 1,200 feet. Even though some of our basins are much deeper than that, an important point of information is when DWR looks at water adequacy and water availability, to give a water adequacy statement, they only count water down to 1,200 feet. So there's kind of a nexus there. In the study, even though some of the assumptions could be argued, that study was supported by DWR, and if the director takes on contemplating an irrigation non-expansion area, he has to take all information into consideration in making a determination. So they would have an opportunity to go, the people opposing an irrigation non-expansion area would have an opportunity to go to the authority, the deciding person, and make their case on whether that should be established in the area. Regarding the matrix study, it looked at the Wallapai Basin into 3 sub-areas. And Supervisor Watson defined those fairly well. But to put the study in a nutshell, what it said that given projected use and the assumptions that they utilized, the southerly area would have only sufficient water to last 60 years. The middle sub-area, the middle area, would have only sufficient water, with the projections, would only have sufficient water to last 80 years. And the northerly area that Supervisor Watson asked to be exempted and excluded had over sufficient water to last past the study duration. So in excess of 100 years, in excess of whatever that study run was, but it was in excess of 100 years. So, there may be some discussion or some contention about the assumptions that were made during the matrix study. The matrix study was actually based on the 2013 USGS model with the matrix's added assumptions and running of the model. And another important bit of information is that the counties contributed, along with the city, about $460,000+ to update that 2013 USGS model with the USGS and have new information provided based on just existing conditions. So we'll know definitively, as close as science can come, what the existing condition of our aquifer is, and that was one of the purposes. How are we doing? Keep talking?
Yeah. I think it's 10 acres. I'm looking at 45,437. It's talking about 10 acres here is what it is. So in an irrigation non-expansion area, that's what we're talking about, right? Irrigation non-expansion. Each person withdrawing groundwater from a non-exempt, withdrawing more than 10 acre feet of groundwater per year. They have to do the requirements. A person who withdraws groundwater from a non-exempt well for an irrigation use is exempt.
Yeah, that's not what I was talking about.
That's not what you're talking about?
No, I thought it said something about that even if they create an irrigation non-expansion district, that landowners would still be able to irrigate 2 acres of their land.
I think that is, but I saw that in 45-454, and in that one, because they talk about domestic purposes, and domestic purposes is designated as 2 acres, 2 acres of land. Yeah, 2 acres, less than 2 acres of land. Is that what you're talking about?
Might be.
Yeah.
Chairman Bishop?
Can we go ahead and call for the vote?
Well, also, maybe we can continue this for the next meeting so that we have all the information to make.
Actually,
no?
No, I'd prefer to continue to do it. Yeah, if we
Okay.
have questions, let's get them squared away.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Oh, my word. Motion passes. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop.
Now we're going to go back to the regular agenda. And because I know Supervisor Watson needs to be excused, I'm going to skip down to item 44.
No, that's okay.
Are you good? Are you going to hang in there?
Good to go.
Okay, then we'll go back to item 42.
I pass out. You're going to have to pick me up.
Item 42, discussion on possible action. Ray approved the sale of a 1994 Cabico mobile home, which was previously accepted by the Board of Supervisors as a donation by a member of the Mojave Valley Fort Mojave Community Park Association to the Mojave Valley Fort Mojave Community Park Association for $1 and transfer the open building permit from Mojave County being the applicant to the Mojave Valley Fort Mojave Community Park Association being the applicant at no additional cost. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve, although it probably wasn't the best deal for us.
Second.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 43, discussion of possible action. Ray approve the facility use permit from Patel Films and authorize the Parks Administrator to issue said permit to Patel Films for shooting of a commercial film at the Wallapai Mountain Park.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
For a second, can I just ask the applicant a question, please?
Sure. Supervisor Angus. Hello, Mr. Patel.
Yeah, hi. My name is Nilesh Patel and from the Patel Films. If you have any questions, so that's why I'm here.
Okay, yeah, I do have a question. Can you just, I looked at the background material, and I saw your Facebook page, and you describe it as an erotic thriller. Can you just tell me what the rating is going to be of this movie?
It's going to be R-rated.
It's going to be R-rated?
Yeah, is it not nothing like a nude or no any like porn style?
So it's not porn?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, you've answered my question.
Yeah.
And well, the filming though, it's all outdoor filming?
Yeah, it's all
exterior
outdoor
filming. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor.
I get a question for staff.
Supervisor Gold.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. What is the amount of the fee that we're charging for this?
Good afternoon, Chairman Bishop, Supervisor Gold, members of the board. As I surmised, we are charging just our base $25 vendor fee for this permit.
That's interesting because when I ran for Congress in Yavapai County, after we made a commercial, they sent me a bill for $100 because I shot a commercial in their town.
I see.
Which is rather interesting. Do you believe that this is going to displace any of our guests that are staying at the
Good
park?
question, Supervisor Gold. We explicitly wrote in the terms and conditions, special terms and conditions into this permit by which the shooting activities will not in any way disrupt unduly the guest experience at the park, whether it's guests staying at the park or guests recreating at the park.
Does $25 even cover our costs to process this paperwork?
Well, Supervisor Gold, we this is very much similar to the level of effort that we would put forward in permitting any other type of vendors, whether they were food vendors or other merchandise vendors. Yes, there is some additional involvement, myself, for instance, but we welcome this opportunity to show the Wallapai Mountain Park area in a motion picture type scene. The special terms and conditions do represent that the Mojave County seal or other Mojave County identifiable items will not be part of the filming, but nonetheless, one would reason that this harkens back to the old John Wayne type movies in the West that prominently show park areas. So the moviegoers may take this as their initiative to research where the film was filmed and learn a little bit more about Wallapai Mountain Park.
Thank you.
I have a problem comparing John Wayne to Mr. Patel, but that was all.
Okay, do we have a second for the motion? I'll second the motion then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
3-2. Motion passes. Item 44, discussion possible action, Ray, approve and adopt and authorize the chairman to sign resolution 2020-022, accepting the regular maintenance request of North Silver Dollar Road from Blake Ranch Road East Line Drive and 1 East Line Drive from North Silver Dollar Road to South Toy Ridge Road be accepted into the Mojave County regular maintenance program as on paved roads.
Chairman
Supervisor
Bishop,
Watson.
so moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
3-2, motion passes. Item 45, discussion and possible action, Ray. Approve Mojave County Parks application for reaccreditation by the Commission for Accreditation of Parks and Recreation Agencies, and further approve budget transfer of $3,500 from the contingency line.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
I got a question of staff.
Okay, Supervisor Gold.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Who would you like to speak to?
Steve, you can answer this one.
Mr. Lukowski.
Yeah. So, Steve, it looks like we pay $37.50 for this accreditation, and I'm curious, what does that actually amount to in something tangible, increased visits or anything like that, to justify the fact that we're going to spend $37.50?
Supervisor Gould, members of the board, this takes off from the board's support last year in extending the accreditation period for parks from 4 to 5 years, and now we are up for our 4-year reaccreditation with the Commission for Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies. To answer your question specifically, park operations is very dynamic. As the years go forward, there are always new things being introduced recreation-wise, hospitality-wise, as well as the tools and techniques to manage park operations. Being CAPRA accredited, which is the foremost accreditation for any park and recreation agency, whether it's city or county, allows us to adapt to the best practices, measure our operations to the best practices in park operations. It allows us to interact with a very broad and very accomplished peer group that enables us to evaluate what has maybe been successes in other park agencies, maybe has been lessons learned that we wish not to pursue. So the benefits are admittedly intangible, indirect, not necessarily direct, but we do wholeheartedly believe that with this nominal investment and being reaccredited with CAPRA enables us to complete going forward on a path by which we're working toward implementing best practices that have been proven in the parks industry, and that ultimately transfers to increased visitorship and increased revenues.
So it's more of a management tool than something that the consumer would look at and say, oh, wow, they're Capra endorsed. I want to stay at their park.
Absolutely. And the way I look at this, Supervisor Gold, is for this nominal investment in getting reaccredited, I mean, gosh, one could spend almost the same amount just to send a couple of staff to a professional conference that would really only pay dividends in a very short term, whereby this is an annual, or I should say a 4-year accreditation that will enable us to interact with our peers at other agencies and also ensure through this accreditation process, we actually have our peers coming to us in Mojave County in May to reaccredit us and to assure us that our practices are in fact, so it's an incredible learning experience as well, professional development that we can apply.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All those in motion say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 46, setting as the Board of Directors for the Horizon 6 Improvement District. Discussion on possible action. Ray approve the district capital project scope of work modification to install 5 subsurface vaults and replace 1 pressure reducing valve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then the last item, 47, has been pulled by staff. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you very much. Have a good day.